Reddit confession threads. I left my wife because I thought she was cheating. She became a H addict. I found out she never cheated. Disclaimer: I have always been an emotional, stupid, dumbass wrecking ball of a person. I wish I could say this was out of the norm. I've been in therapy since I was 11 years old. I met my wife in 2005 in a nightclub in Lower Manhattan, and she was an amazing person, and we connected right away. We dated, then got married in 2007. I was 23, she was 25. But we were in love, and to us, it didn't really matter. We actually had a good marriage, and I loved her, and she loved me. I was shocked at how much we got along for so many years. Meanwhile, most people in relationships started to hate me almost like after 3 months. She still adored me after 7 years, but leave it up to me to screw that up completely. In 2014, I had suspicions she was cheating on me. Not strong suspicions, but she had a coworker who she was friends with who was, well, really attractive. I just thought, why be friends with this guy? She didn't often make friends with her coworkers. Why this guy specifically? Because he was hot? She was secretive about him, which made me way more suspicious. I remember one day she told me that she had a secret about him, which she would eventually tell me. I probably should have listened and understood what she said more. The hints she was dropping seem really obvious in retrospect. I didn't get any of her hints. For a bit, she got defensive over the phone. That was when I sort of began really suspecting things. One day, I checked her phone, and all I saw was him texting her saying he really needs to speak to her right now. Like a bunch of texts. Also texts about inappropriate intimate stuff. But it was really the "I need to see you now" texts which really threw me off. I didn't even confront her. That's the worst part. I just left and went to New Mexico to go stay with my parents. I was so sure she cheated on me. Nothing could convince me otherwise. I was so hurt that I became S-word for a tiny bit. Then I went to therapy and got better. But I blocked her in every possible way I could. She had no idea why I left. My therapist kept telling me to contact her. I never listened. I actually lied to my therapist and said I did. There were some times where she called my parents and I talked to her and just said that I knew she was cheating and that I couldn't be with her, and that was that, and then I just hung up. It was too horrible and emotional, and I just wanted to put it all behind me somehow. I wanted to act as if it never happened. I didn't have the balls to deal with it. I didn't file divorce papers at that time. I never explained anything further than that. I just hung up. In 2015, I painfully reconnected with her. I never told her why I left. I felt horrible, but I also felt angry at her for cheating on me. I never wanted to know who she cheated on me with or what the situation was. I just wanted her out of my life. But when I finally connected with her, I just found an entirely new person. She was in and out of rehab. She was a pill addict. She said it started after I had left her, that she had a lot of pills left over from a surgery she had. She had a knee surgery in 2013 and started taking them a lot to deal with the pain of me leaving her. Then she connected with her friend who started selling pills to her. Anyways, after a bit more of talking with her online over quite a few weeks, I eventually told her the situation as to why I thought she cheated. It was sort of this unspoken thing beforehand. I told her I didn't want her to bring it up. Then I just asked her straight up. And she told me that was her coworker, and he was gay. She hung out with him a lot, and he would often call her and text her to come over so they could talk about his problems. I checked his Facebook, and he came out officially as gay in 2014. Before that, he was in the closet. Also, the inappropriate, intimate stuff they were talking about suddenly made so much sense. They were comparing the way women and men have intimate times to the way men have intimate with men. But it didn't seem obvious by the text I read. It just kind of sounded like they were planning to do intimate time with each other. In retrospect, it seemed painfully obvious, but at the time it wasn't. I just wish I didn't fucking freak out and leave. I think if I ever mentioned his name, it would have clicked for her. And she would have told me why it was just a misunderstanding. But she had zero idea why I suspected her of cheating. I left my wife, never spoke to her again, and went halfway across the country over a misspoken series of texts that I read because I was a sneaky fucking bastard and I was too emotional to even ask my wife what the problem was. I just left. I never asked her to clarify anything. She would go on to become a H addict from a pill addict. She posts sometimes about how she is 3 weeks sober, but it's never longer than that. I'm basically an alcoholic and live near my parents in Albuquerque. I have zero interest in finding a girlfriend. Instead, I have a bunch of meaningless one-night stands when I go out on weekends. I am almost always hammered and booger sugared up or Adderalled up when I go out on the weekends. I sort of have friends, but not really. They're just a bunch of alcoholics and party people in the area who I link up with on weekends. I can't be away from my parents now. They're the only people I enjoy being around. I'm just an emotionally fragile mess who feels like they completely ruined someone's life over something so stupid. I know it sounds stupid, but for the past few years, my parents are the only friends I have and the only people I really see besides the people at my job and the woman I sleep with, who I never make connections with. I cannot help but think I will literally never get out of this. The fact that I ruined her life over this. I go to therapy, but it doesn't help enough. I still sometimes talk to her. We officially got divorced. Nothing split in 2017. She is a H addict, and I am horribly depressed, so we have some relations, but I can't help but think that I ruined her life far, far more than I ruined mine. And the worst part is, the only reason I am in pain is because I ruined her life. And just, man, that's such a insane confession. Yeah, that's just a good reason to not jump to conclusions. Even one of the top comments says, "Damn, dude, I'll remember this next time I want to jump to conclusions." But wow, I mean, he just read something on his girlfriend's phone or his wife's phone. Seemed intimate, seemed, like she was cheating, and he just flipped out, moved across the country, and ruined her life. Wow, I hope the OP is doing better now. I really do. I mean, it's been 7 years since this post. 7 years is a long, long time, and who knows what the OP is doing now. I just hope the OP is doing better now. I hope the OP's wife or ex-wife is doing better now, because, yeah, by the end of this post, it didn't seem like either of them were in a good spot at all. But 7 years is a long time to hopefully heal, and hopefully they're doing better now. There hasn't been a single update from the OP. This is the only post on the OP's entire Reddit account, so I just have to hope that they're doing better, but there's no way to know. And now let's read some top comments. Someone says, "You effed up. You still love her. She loved you. She might still. Reach out to her and explain what happened and ask for forgiveness. It might work. It might not. Either way, it sounds like you need each other." And I mean, a lot of the comments are just kind of flaming the OP for reasons that are obvious. But yeah, geez, that is just such a sad post, such a depressing post. And as the title of this video, so shocking. That's how he ruined his life and her life, by just jumping to conclusions, doing something irrational. And I hope we can all learn a lesson from this and, say that let's not jump to conclusions and instead talk to one another and figure stuff out, because jumping to conclusions really doesn't help anybody. And so, yeah, like I said earlier, I just hope the OP and the OP's ex-wife is doing better now. I'm dying and have told nobody. This might be somewhat long, but I basically just made this Reddit account to talk about it. Some introductions first. I'm 22 male, and for the greater part of a year, I have noticed myself growing gradually weaker. I am an avid golfer who used to be able to hit drives upwards of 290 to 300 yards. Now I'm lucky to hit it 220 to 230 yards. In addition, I am also someone who used to enjoy jogging until multiple repetitive falls, more or less, forced me to quit. There are other symptoms that raise concern, but I won't bore anyone with the extensive details. At any rate, about 6 months I had my initial consultation with my neurologist, and he was very dismissive of my symptoms, saying they were likely caused by anxiety and to not read further into it. After some protest on my part, he agreed to perform some diagnostic testing in a few months if nothing had improved. 4 months go by, and of course, things got worse. Perplexed, my neurologist ordered an EMG, which, if you did not know, is a test which involves measuring the activity of nerves in the body through the use of needle electrodes. Sounds awful, truly was not that bad. As the test began, the technician was very amicable and talkative, but as soon as the first needle went into my arm, her demeanor changed immediately, as if any levity had suddenly been drained from her. That was the first time I began to truly worry. Upon completing the test, she immediately sent the results to my neurologist, who, that very same day, arranged for additional testing including, but not limited to, MRI, extensive neurological exam, strength tests, and an additional EMG, the whole shebang, to be completed within the week. At any rate, following the completion of the second EMG, this time by my neurologist himself, I was summoned into his office. After jotting down some quick notes and doing some mental aerobics, he asked very politely for me to sit down, and before the words even left his mouth, I immediately knew what was going to come out. And that's essentially the story of how I went from being a perfectly normal 22-year-old to being told that I had Lou Gehrig's disease and 3 to 5 years of life left. And I just quickly looked up Lou Gehrig's disease, and apparently it's a progressive neurological disorder that attacks every nerve cell in the brain and spinal cord, causing loss of voluntary muscle control, weakness, and eventually paralysis, with death often resulting from respiratory failure, though mental function remains intact. So that is beyond terrifying. And then the OP continues saying, all things considered, I consider myself extremely fortunate that I still have most of faculties about me for the time being. But on to the reason I made this post. Since my diagnosis, which was about 2 months ago, I have yet to tell anyone in person about it. My family and I have never been particularly close, and most of my friends are college buddies who now live close to 500 miles away. Of course, everyone is bound to find out eventually, but I would honestly be okay if they never did. The mere thought of burdening everyone as I slowly turn into furniture is almost more debilitating than the knowledge that my body is growing slightly more useless every day. I know it is the right choice to garner a support system, but it's almost as if I don't really want one. I just want to disappear, forgotten by all those who would otherwise pity my circumstances. I'm fully aware that I have no choice in the matter. This is just my way of exercising some minor control over my life before I lose control over everything else. And I mean, God, that is just so depressing and so terrifying, because with ALS, it's just a slow deterioration of your body. And it's not like, I mean, all horrible terminal diseases are like that, but like, it's just terrifying how you just slowly lose muscle function, but you remain intact in your brain, and then you just can't use your body anymore, and then you just eventually die. I mean, that is terrifying and so depressing. And now let's get into some top comments. Someone says, maybe this won't make you feel better, OP, but at the very least, knowing that you have 3 to 5 years allows you to prioritize the things you want to do in the time you have left. Young people die suddenly every day and never get the chance to think about what they would have or should have done. We're all going to die eventually. And personally, I hope I'm one of the people who gets plenty of advance warning, but of course, I'm sure it's different when you're actually in that position. Anyway, don't worry about paying back your student loans, your credit card debt, or watching what you eat. Go do whatever the heck you want to do. Enjoy your freedom. And then someone replies saying, 3 of those last years could be him lying in a hospital bed 24/7, unable to talk, eat, swallow, or breathe properly. The pulmonary system is the last to give in, and ALS patients often spend a long time absolutely paralyzed before actual biological death occurs. I'm really sorry to be a spoil sport here, but it could be only even a few months before he's bedbound. One of my patients had less than a year from the initial diagnosis, weak right arm, unsteady balance, until the last stage where he/she was in a ventilator, only able to blink. It took him/her actually several years in that state to die. Jesus, man. Someone else says, unless you have a highly toxic relationship with your mother, tell her. I'm fighting back tears just thinking that it could be my son hiding something so serious from me. Mothers usually only want what is best for their children, for them to be happy and healthy. Give her the chance to be there for you. You will need help down the line. You will need someone to speak and advocate for you. Someone who only has your best interests at heart. Often that is a mother or a spouse. And yeah, that is just so sad. And the final comment I'll read is, holy shit, dude, I'm so sorry. I don't advocate S-word, but I think in that circumstance, I would live my life as well as I possibly could for as long as I could, and then get it medically assisted if at all possible. Cheers, mate. Live and love as hard as you can. I can't do much, but I'll raise a glass for you. And then the OP actually responds to this saying, as it were, one of the first things I considered post-diagnosis was S-word. Even though it is undeniably a self-centered thing to do, I can't envision myself peacefully living out my final days locked inside my own bodily prison. That, in my opinion, is nothing short of sheer torture. And yeah, that is so haunting. And this was posted 9 years ago. And it's been 9 years since the OP made a comment, so we can only assume the worst, that the OP has since passed away. Hopefully the OP lived out their final days doing what they loved. And wow, that just really hits. I mean, hits hard. I mean, it's so shocking and so sad and so depressing to be diagnosed with something, especially so young, 22. And he only found out he had a few years left to live, and the final years might not even be really living. They will be, like he said, trapped inside his bodily prison. Wow. Yeah, super sad. And I mean, the OP's name is Enter Oblivion, which we can only assume relates to death, entering the oblivion of whatever, death. I mean, yeah, that is just really sad. And rest in peace, the OP. I hope he's in a better place now. Back in the 1980s, I used to run drugs, guns, and women between 2 major cities. I did some terrible things. Ask me anything. On this, the day before Thanksgiving, I keep thinking about how blessed I am with the life I now have. A loving family, a successful career, a beautiful wife who I love more than anything. At the same time, I cringe during this time of the year when I think back to the life I used to lead. All the names and locations in this confession have been fabricated, but with a nod to old memories not being 100% reliable, what I shall confess here is true. Also, before I begin, let me state that I'm not proud of this period of my life. I'm absolutely ashamed about it. Out of high school, I went to work at a manufacturing plant that my father and his before him had both worked at their entire lives. I made pretty decent money and owned my first house when I was only 19, while most of my friends were working shitty jobs and living in small, shitty dorms at various universities. I thought of them as suckers at the time. But despite my decent pay, it was never enough. Enter James, a guy I only barely knew in high school. Like me, he had a fake ID and frequented a very sleazy bar/strip joint just outside of our hometown. I didn't have many friends at that point because most of them were away at university, improving their lives. I guess that's why I gravitated towards James. Eventually, we started hanging out regularly. For a time, I even let him live at my house. One day, James asked me if I'd like to make $400 cash. Who wouldn't? And all I had to do was drive a car of his from the city nearby to a city about 4 hours away. That was it. He'd even given me an extra $50 to buy a bus ticket home after, so I did it without many questions. That's how it began. Every few weeks, he'd ask me if I'd be willing to do anything. And though I knew something shady must be going on, I figured what the hell. All I had to do was drive, drop the car off at a certain address, and then catch a bus back home. Easy money, no questions asked. One day, during one of the drives, the car, which was a junker, they always were, got a flat. When I opened the trunk to get out the spare, I saw a large black duffel bag, the kind hikers used to pack up large tents, but I knew there was no tent inside. When I opened it, I was only mildly surprised to see it filled with guns. I never mentioned the flat or my discovery of the guns to James. The money was too good, and I didn't want to piss him off. But over time, we just eventually, and naturally, cut out all the bullshit. Stopped using code words. Stopped pretending I didn't know what I was doing. About a year later, I knew full well that I was transporting either guns or drugs, and usually both, every other weekend. I asked for and received a raise, $600 a trip plus expenses. I never met the people on the other end during this time. I would just drop off the car at either a house or apartment complex in the other city, then get the fuck out of there. Meanwhile, back at home, James had become my best friend. He knew how to party. He knew everyone at the local bars and strip joints. He must have gotten me laid a dozen times, and I'm talking with girls who were hot as fuck. I had serious girlfriends during this time too, but whenever I had some kind of beef with James, he'd show up at the door with some young hottie that barely spoke English. Some, I suspect, were no older than 16, but they were always very submissive and compliant, and they always showed me a good time. I knew in the back of my head that these girls were being mistreated, that they were most likely escorts, that they were basically slaves. But I ignored all my reservations. I liked having intimate time with them, and I treated them like shit because it made me feel good somehow. Eventually, James asked me to drive 3 girls to the other city and drop them off at a bar. They were transferring, he told me. I agreed. During that drive, one of them tried to escape during a stop at a rest area. She literally threw open the door and took off running as soon as I stopped the car. I chased her down, tackled her, and dragged her back to the car while she wailed in tears and blubbering things in Polish or Russian. After that, I still didn't stop. I ran the girls too, but always bound their ankles together with twine before leaving. I ran them both ways, from my city to the other and back. I still ran the drugs and guns too, and I made a lot of money in the process. Everything began to finally change for me when James had me help him start recruiting locals. I know it's horrible, but the foreign girls were easy to ignore since I never really understood them. Only 1 in 3 ever knew much English, and even then, they were usually quiet. The local girls, they weighed on my conscience. I suddenly saw them as human. One in particular begged me to bring her home, and she was as young as my little sister, so I did. I brought her home. The scariest moment of my life was when James showed up at my house after that. He was furious, and he was caring as always. He actually drew his piece on me. I don't know how, but somehow I talked him down from murdering me right then and there. I did a few more runs for him after that, but no women/girls. Eventually, I got lucky. The plant I worked at had ordered increased production, 7-day work weeks. James knew he couldn't pay me enough to make up for me quitting that job, so he accepted the fact I no longer could be one of his runners. After a few months, he stopped even asking me. I got my shit together. During that time, I became very religious as the guilt for what I had done consumed me. I remain religious to this day, though not so much as back then. Eventually, I ended up becoming one of the suckers I used to sneer at. I went back to school, I got a degree, and I've been working in my field of study ever since. No idea why I got so lucky. Had I been pulled over once in any of those drives, I would have been fucked. Those days will forever haunt my nightmares. When I think of those poor girls especially, my own daughters are older than some of the ones I essentially R-worded back then. To this day too. Whenever I read about a shooting in that city I brought so many guns to, I wonder if possibly one of the weapons had been delivered there by me. The drug ODs too, the lives ruined by the drugs. Jesus, help me. But you can ask me anything if you want in the meantime. And before we move on to the comments, I just want to say quickly, this is such a different confession than usual. I mean, this isn't ask me anything, a drug runner, a weapon runner. This is so much different than usual. And right off the bat, I just have to say, it's great that the OP got out of it when he could and didn't stay in that life for much longer. I mean, it's horrible for what he did, but I'm glad he feels some sort of remorse for it and he feels sorry for what he did and is hopefully doing better now or trying to give back to his community or do something because, yeah, that life usually doesn't leave a lot of people. But anyways, let's get into some comments. Someone asks, saying, I know this is hypothetical, but if the plant hadn't increased production or if he matched the money, would you have stayed in? Was it just this that made you stop? Or were you leaning towards getting out already? And then the OP responds saying, if the plant hadn't increased the production, I would probably have tried to find a way to get out anyway. I was almost entirely clean of drugs at this point, and the guilt of what I had been doing, combined with my realization that I was risking my life and freedom, had me thinking of ways to get out. But James was a scary man when he wanted to be. I had seen it. I knew I couldn't just go to him and say I wanted out. The increased production gave me the perfect excuse. While he was pissed about it, James just told me I had to do what I had to do. If he had promised to match the money, I'd still have tried to get out, but it would have been more tempting to stay in probably because that work was a lot easier and I was still struggling with my sobriety. Someone else says, do you know what happened to James? Where is he now? And then the OP responds saying, James ended up moving for reasons I don't know. The last communication I ever received from him was a letter asking me if I'd be interested in joining him in a new business venture. I never replied to that letter. Years later, I found out he died from an OD. According to the Social Security Death Index, he died half a country away shortly after he sent me that letter. And then the commenter replies saying, sad stuff, man. Glad you got out of it and turned your life around. And then the OP responds saying, thanks. The really hard thing is looking into my past and seeing such evil. I can blame the drugs and my youth and the appeal of money, but at the end of the day, I know I was just an evil son of a bitch. Those girls. I think about those girls all the time. I often wonder what they're doing now, if they ever escaped. But I can't find out because I never knew their names. I wish we had never adopted this kid. My wife and I had been trying for a couple of years to have our own kids, but we found out we could not. So we went the way we had talked about many times before and went through adoption because, hey, every kid needs a home, right? That's when we came across our now adopted son, Nate. Names changed, of course. Nate was the son of a horrible mom who fucked who she could for drugs, money, etc. His biological father had some sense and convinced mom to put all three of her kids. Nate was the only one of his. The other two, a brother and sister, were from unknown/different fathers. She agreed. And that was when Nate was about 6. He was technically removed due to deplorable living conditions and abuse, but she didn't fight to keep him. We met him for the first time last year. I was sketchy on him. He appeared to have ADHD. Not a deal breaker, but wouldn't have been my first choice. He never looked at us, jumped up and ran around the restaurant we met at, and had a hard time focusing. Hell, he's a 9-year-old kid. Kids have a hard time sitting still and get nervous, I figured. My wife fell in love with him. I was still sketchy about it, but we had met other kids, so he wasn't our first choice at the time. We started getting more info on him, planned on meeting him more, etc. It was a learning curve. We took him to Chuck E. Cheese just to hang with him for all day. He was all over the place. Kids, no biggie. We started finding out more from the foster parents, who we didn't care for. They seemed to be brainwashing their kids and seemed to be in it for the money. Nothing major, but I was still being cautious. We figured maybe he had either ADHD or some high-functioning autism. Again, not a deal breaker, but it was something I'm not used to. My wife had experience, volunteer and career, with special needs children. He seemed to be growing on us. Called us mom and dad once. We started having fun together. It seemed to be a good fit. We noticed, closer to the day we took him home for 6 months before finalizing the adoption, he had addictions. Mostly video games. Not too unusual. Again, he's a kid. Kids are supposed to love video games. Fuck, we both like them. Why not? But he became aggressive. Like, wouldn't listen to you, and if you turned them off or threatened to take them away, he'd become violent and throw the controller, kick in a chair, etc. We nipped that in the ass as soon as possible, limiting him and explaining why. We eventually took it away altogether. Maybe explain later. He saw a therapist, psychologist, optometrist, general physician, and several other professionals. One diagnosed him with ADHD, another thought autism, another thought reactive attachment disorder. All seemed less than great, but we're attached. We'd get through this. That was about a year ago now. Ever since then, at least every other day, if not every day, we have to put him in restraints. All okay per DHS, his therapist and others. We've had to get onto him. We've tried different reward systems. We've tried starting nice/second chances. We've tried everything we can think of. Fuck, even trying to show unconditional love when we feel nearly defeated. He's constantly lying about everything and anything. He plays dumb. He threatens to be bad, which we aren't afraid of. We've shown him many times we're not afraid of him. He breaks things. He has no emotions, anything. Never shows remorse unless he's told to. Tell them you're sorry. Does what he wants, even when he knows it's going to get things taken away. He's tried and somewhat succeeded to hurt his dog several times because he wants to see how it feels pain. He's been pure hell. He understands, but he doesn't care, from what we can tell. Just tonight, we had a date night and dropped him off to a parents' night out group at the local Y. We had a great time just being able to be ourselves. We get back, I go in to pick him up. The assistants there pull me aside and tell me he has caught trying to, well, not so much trying, he did grab several girls' parts twice. That was all the info I needed. I grabbed him, a bit embarrassed, brought him to the car, and had him explain to my wife what happened. Of course, we've been talking to him for several hours now, explaining why that was bad, etc. But again, he shows no remorse and just makes up excuse after excuse. Long story short, he wanted to, and so he did. After everything we've been through, I honestly regret adopting him. I don't know if I'd adopt again if I was given the chance. Even if given the chance to go back in time and change my mind on him and switch to another kid, I don't think I would. We'd be much happier without him, or any other child in our home. I wish Nate had never come into our lives, and I'm pretty sure my wife wishes the exact same thing. And now let's get into some comments, and boy, these comments are honest and harsh. Let's get into it. Give him back to the state. It's not worth it to keep him. He has had a shitty life, but he is clearly beyond your means and abilities. It's sad, but it has to be done for your sanity and quality of life. And then someone replies saying, seconded. Things don't work out. I feel like OP and Mrs. OP were rushed into this decision. This kid was born addicted to whatever the fuck his biological mom was on, and now you have the deranged juvenile running your house. Has OP talked to wife about giving him back? And then someone replies saying thirded. Might even be good for the child. If it's clearly not working out here, perhaps he can have a chance with someone else. And then someone else says, when you said reactive attachment disorder, I knew you were effed. That is one thing that is just going to totally psychologically destroy a person for life. You see, plenty of adults that have ADHD and high-functioning autism make it and do fine in life, but I have never heard of a story of someone with reactive attachment disorder being anything other than a complete psychological disaster. The main stories I have heard are of severely neglected children from Russian orphanages who are complete demon children. I hate to say this, but he will probably get violent towards you at some point. And that is kind of the general consensus. Everybody is saying he's kind of a lost cause, especially for the OP and Mrs. OP here, because I think it's just they're in over their heads. They can't, not fix, but they can't help someone like this. They just aren't a specialist at all. And this kid was just given to him at this state, and it's kind of hard to fix that for just adopted parents. And the OP has made no new updates on the profile or on the OP's profile, so we don't know what happened. But everybody in the comments was being very, very honest and very, very grim. They're saying that they can't really help him, and he seems to be a lost cause almost, and to just give him back to the state. And I'm really curious to hear what you guys think about this one. If you guys have any thoughts, please drop them down below. I'm curious to hear if you guys think these Reddit comments are being too harsh or if they're being honest and there really is no fixing Nate. But hopefully Nate's doing better now. Hopefully the OP and the OP's wife is doing better now. And I'm just really curious what happened with the situation, but we have received no updates. I'm waiting for my brother to either commit S-word or get his life together. Today, my younger brother turned 21. No party, no celebration. He refused to read his birthday card from our grandma. He did not even want to blow out the candles on his cake. Ever since I was about 12, I knew my parents were failing him. He was a hyperactive kid, so they pumped him full of ADHD medication, which gave him insomnia and anxiety. So they put him on anxiety meds and sleeping pills, which made him depressed. So they put him on antidepressants, all before age 10. He was given a computer at a young age and was completely addicted immediately. My parents set no boundaries in terms of usage, so he would play all day, every day, sometimes late into the night before school. As you can imagine, this resulted in him becoming antisocial, ruined his grades, and prevented him from participating in any meaningful activities like sports or clubs. I would get into screaming matches with my mother over the fact that she needed to take the computer away from him. Then our other family members started expressing concern. Then teachers. Our parents did nothing. Later, he was diagnosed with celiac disease, which explained his difficulty concentrating and other problems he had been experiencing. My parents provided him with gluten-free food for about 6 months before giving up. It was all too hard. Pathetic, I know. So he has now been eating gluten as a known celiac for the past 6 years. I've had a million discussions with him and my family about how much damage this causes, and they pretend to care but are too lazy to do anything about it. I tried providing education. I tried giving meal ideas and grocery lists. I tried cooking gluten-free meals for the family. They do not change. As I became an adult, I would speak to other family members and family friends who agreed that what my parents were doing was wrong. They would agree that he needed the computer taken away, that he needed to be disciplined, and that he needed to stop eating gluten. At that point, so much damage had been done, and he ended up dropping out of high school 8 months from graduation. His reason? Our mother couldn't drive him, and he didn't like walking to school. My brother is not an idiot. My parents are both well-educated and intelligent people. Why they have made these choices, I can only assume, is to avoid temporary discomfort. He has been to so many psychologists and nothing has helped. One psych refused to continue seeing him because he was refusing to accept help. Over the years, he had expressed how depressed he is, but seems to have no desire to be helped. He has threatened S-word a dozen times, but never acted on it. When he does this, I urge my parents to take him to the hospital, to call an ambulance, but then he is suddenly all better. He uses S-word as a threat to get what he wants for them, and they don't see it. I know the way I'm thinking might sound extremely harsh, but truly, I feel at this point he either does a complete 360 or simply commits S-word. Sadly, the latter is more likely to happen. I have exhausted all my options. He is unemployed and will not apply for jobs. He does not want to try any new hobbies. He refuses to volunteer anywhere. He knows that I'm here for him whenever he needs, but he does not want help. At the end of the day, there's nothing left I can do unless he chooses to help himself. We have both dealt the same cards in life. I have not been exempt from problems in my life. I have had low points. Arguably, I have faced far greater challenges than him, but I have made the best of what I have. I have helped myself. He has decided this life for himself. In the past year, I have had to stop trying and simply let go as other priorities in my life take over. I'm currently working full-time and saving for a house deposit with my partner. We plan on getting married and having children as soon as financially possible. Once I have children, they will be my top priority. I fear that when our parents eventually pass away, I will be the only person left in his life. At that point, I will not be able to help him. I just had to confess the way I feel. I know it is horrible, but it is the most realistic conclusion to this problem. Tell me I'm an asshole. Tell me there's something I can do. And then the OP makes an edit saying, I do not live with my family anymore. For the people saying I don't understand ADHD, I also have it but was diagnosed later in life, as is typical for most girls. It wasn't picked up when I was young. I have also suffered with severe depression and S-word thoughts, but have chosen to reach out for help and work on developing healthy coping mechanisms. I don't want to provide too many details about myself because I wanted my brother to be the focus on the post, but thought this would provide some more context. And now let's get into some Redditors' thoughts and get into the comments on this post. Someone says, your parents completely failed him, but this isn't on you to fix. You've been trying to help for years, but you can't make someone change that doesn't want to change. And I do agree with that. I mean, you can help someone or try to help someone as much as possible, but some people just don't accept help. And it's horrible because you might want the best for them, but they just can't accept it for whatever reason. Another commenter says, at this point, you're just going to have a million people here telling you you're in the wrong because of his age or his ADHD or their own projections based on non-related things they felt as kids. But ultimately, just do the best you can. If he doesn't want help, don't stress yourself out too much trying to give him it though. Some people are just set on failing in this world. It's like that old phrase, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. Good luck. And then a commenter replies to this saying, agree. My little brother was almost exactly the same as this kid. The real problem was the more people pressured him, the harder he dug his heels in. I started coming over and bringing him some new clothes from Walmart. I'd asked if he wanted to hang out, and if he said no, then okay, see you later. He didn't leave the house for years. I genuinely thought he might murder S-word my mom for a while it was so bad. One day he said yes. We got Mexican food and I told him about my job. He said, sounds boring. And I'm like, yeah, bro, but it makes me afford cool shit and I kind of like it. This was a major turning point for him. Now he has a great job. His coworkers adore him. He seems genuinely happy and he has more friends than I do. No one ever believes it's been such a wild 180. I do think he's a little autistic, but the only evidence I have is the lack of identifying sarcasm and his way to logical attitude for literally everything. And yeah, I think that one poster said it perfectly. You can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. And I just have to feel bad for the OP because the OP genuinely seems to want to help their brother. But, you know, it's either a mix of the parents not trying to help ever since a young age, and now it's kind of a lost cause. But as the reply to that comment said, he says, my brother was the exact same, and he did a 180 and he's all good now. So hopefully the OP doesn't give up on her brother just yet, and he can make a 180 and improve his life. But, you know, we haven't heard any updates since then. This was posted about a year ago. So hopefully the OP is doing better now, and the OP's brother is doing now. I've lost $200,000 in the past 3 years gambling. I, 25 male, have a serious gambling problem, and I'm not sure who to go to anymore. It all started in the middle of COVID with $25 here and there, betting on sports and playing blackjack for fun. Never really was a big issue, never betting more than I could handle. I have a great job. I have a great job that pays me $100,000 a year. I still live at home and pay the little necessities like rent and bills. In 2022, it got bad. I lost about $80,000 without anybody knowing my entire life savings was gone. I called 1-800-GAMBLER, got myself banned from my respective state from all casinos and online, and even told my mother about it. I was doing good for about 3 months, and then 2023 hit, and I found this app where I could bet cryptocurrency. So I started there, entering in $500 here and there. I want help. I know I need help, and I get into these moods where I just can't stop even though I know it's bad. I can't help myself. I've been through all the swings. The gamblers have the winnings and the losings. I'm unaware of what to do and where to go. I lost it all last night. I've been up all night thinking about it. I feel lost and very tired. And I just thought this was a very important confession to add because gambling is horrible. And it is even worse in the modern day. I mean, I'm sure you see a lot of YouTubers promoting it and taking a sponsor from gambling companies, and every single ad on YouTube is basically a gambling company nowadays, it feels like. But gambling truly is such a slippery slope, and you just don't win no matter what. Because if you gamble for the first time and you win, great. You're going to want to gamble again, and then you'll eventually lose. And then if you lose, you're going to want to win that back, and then you can keep losing. And it's just that's just obvious gambling, but it's just not a risk you want to take. Even the first time can get you hooked, and it's just a very slippery slope of losing all your money. And it's hard enough to keep money nowadays, let alone just throwing it into the void of the gambling universe or whatever. The gambling gods taking it from you. But yeah, just very rough story, and I can only feel for the OP losing his life savings. I mean, I can't even imagine trying to rebound from that and to have the motivation to continue working or continue doing anything in life knowing you lost like tens and tens of thousands of dollars. God, it's just so sad. And let's get into some comments. Someone says, normally posts like this make me want to mind my own business. First things first, the money gambled is gone. You know this place. You know it's your bones. The door with incredibly steep stairs is a choice you could take, my friend, and you should take it. Realize that not only do you have the privilege to have had the fun you've had for so long, but you also have the luxury of being able to bounce back. Having not affected anyone but yourself for the most part, learn and grow. Perfection is enemy of progress, and you've never going to have a streak that will resurrect the pain from you. Gambling is a demon that will rob you of the person you were meant to be. Many of us have been here, and you will bounce back and beat this. Turn the page, leave it behind, and take what you've learned and use it to be fucking amazing. Edit. Oh yeah, get some sleep. Lord, what a difference a day makes. And then the OP responds saying, thank you so much, kind stranger. I'm going to make this post my homepage on my phone. And it's been about a year since the OP posted this with no further updates, so I can only hope the OP has gotten better, rebounded, and bounced back the best he could. I was very successful as a child, but I lost it all and now I have nothing. When I was 14, I was a pretty big YouTuber. I had around 1.8 million subscribers. My channel was blowing up, and I was making a lot of money. Some months over $50,000. It was my dream and I was actually living it. I'd made tons of close friends from YouTube. I was well known in the game I played, and for the first time in my life, I was genuinely happy. But the thing is, I never really saw the money. My narcissistic mom was in control of it all. She told me I was too young to have a bank account and that she'd take care of it for me. She gave me around $1,000 a month, which, yeah, sounds like a lot for a 14-year-old, but when you're making 50 times that, turns out, instead of saving it for my future like she promised, she was spending most of it. When I turned 15, things started falling apart. My mental health completely deteriorated. I developed anorexia and ended up hospitalized. My channel became impossible to keep up with. I stopped posting for almost a year, and everything I built just started to disappear. Then, when I finally wanted to come back, I made a stupid decision that basically ruined any chance of reviving my channel. I tried downloading Adobe software for free. Yeah, dumb, I know. I got hacked and the hacker posted some graphic content on my channel. I got permanently banned. And instead of contacting YouTube right away, I just gave up. I was so mentally checked out that I didn't even care at the time and told myself I would deal with it later. When I finally tried to appeal months later, YouTube denied me. I tried everything I possibly could to get my channel back and nothing worked. My mom had spent most of my money, but she left me around $100,000. I had to literally beg her for over a year to give it to me. But like an idiot, I blew it. Car, addictions, very bad decisions. It turns out my mom was right all along. When I was 19, I was diagnosed with bipolar disorder and started drinking a lot. Now I'm in my 20s, completely broke, completely alone, and I feel like a fucking loser. I know I'm stupid. I know I made horrible choices, but please don't judge me too harshly. I wasn't in my right mind, and at the time, I didn't care about my future because I wished I was dead. I couldn't see past the moment I was in, and I just let everything fall apart. I think about my past a lot. How much potential I had, how I literally had it all at 14, and how I just let it slip away. I don't know how to move on from it. I peaked as a teenager, and now I have nothing. If anyone's ever recovered from throwing their life away, I'd really love to hear now. Because right now, I don't see a way forward. And now let's get into some comments. Someone says, if you could be that successful at 14, you can do it again in your 20s. Use your life story in an interesting, compelling, and positive way. I agree with that. Someone else says, hi OP, I had 7 million followers on my channel. Got hacked, too, I'm from Philippines, and I thought my life was over. But I didn't give up. I moved on, graduated college, and continued with my life. Yes, we had some good followers before, but life goes on. It doesn't stop just because we lost that channel. I have my own family now, and also started my channel from the 0 followers to almost 4 million followers right now. I also bought multiple properties because of that channel. Had 500 million plus views last year, 2024. I created my channel when I was 16, got hacked when I was 19. I'm now 26 years old. It was tough to deal with, for real, but promise it will be worth it. Just keep going. And yeah, I mean, that's what a lot of the comments say. Just keep going. You can turn it around. It can get better. And I have to agree. I mean, I have a channel that's pretty successful, but I haven't gone through anything of what the OP is mentioning with her mother stealing all the money. I mean, I can't imagine. That's so tragic. And I just hope the OP can learn and move on. It's very unfortunate the OP blew the $100,000 because that could have been a great starting point for starting another business or just investing it or just saving it or as a great, emergency fund or whatever. But it's unfortunate she blew it. And I just have to say, get up, keep going, keep moving on because, 20 is still very young and you have a lot of life to live. You don't need to give up now, and you didn't peak at 14. Your peak is still in the future. On to the next one. I hit rock bottom last night after years of gambling. I really need to get this off my chest and hear from others who've been through it. Hey everyone, I'm 22 years old and I've been gambling since I was 18. I've never really told anyone the full story, but after what happened last night, I feel like I finally hit my breaking point. It all started when I first went to the casino with my friends at 18. I put down $50 and somehow walked out with $1,000. The next day, I did the same thing, another $50 and $1,000 on roulette. At that age, that kind of win felt unreal. I got hooked. For a while, it didn't seem that bad. I'd go maybe once every week or two with my mates, only spending around $50 each time. I was working at a Korean barbecue place, so I always had a bit of spare cash to play with, but over the years, it started to spiral. When I was 19, I got into sports betting, and that's when things got really bad. I lost every single dollar I'd saved for a trip to Asia. The trip was only a few months away, and I had to pick up another job just to make sure I didn't disappoint my girlfriend. That guilt and stress nearly broke me. I told myself I'd learned my lesson, and for a while, I stopped. I went a few months clean and built my savings back up around $6,000, but of course, the moment I felt safe again, I went back. I started winning again at first, and that false sense of control came flooding back in. Then, last night happened. I lost everything. Around $14,000. That was all the money I had saved. I work in support worker now, and I'm at a point where I barely have enough left for fuel. I'm so depressed and full of regret. I keep replaying every moment, wishing I could go back and make different choices. What makes it even harder is pretending everything's okay. Having to smile in front of my girlfriend when all I feel is guilt and shame. Trying to hang out with friends and act like I'm fine when deep down, I feel completely empty. It's exhausting trying to keep up with the act when all I want to do is disappear for a while. I know I'm still young and that I can rebuild, but right now, it just feels unbearable. I don't want to hide anymore. I don't want to keep living in this cycle of losing, rebuilding, and destroying myself again. If anyone out there has gone through something similar, how did you recover? How did you rebuild your finances and your mental health after hitting rock bottom? Any advice or even just hearing your stories would mean a lot right now. Thanks for reading. And now let's get into some comments. Someone says, one of the worst addictions, brother. My father, rest his soul, was a huge gambler for most of his life. Good man, bad habit. Very bad. He kicked it when he was around 60 but died at 65. The amount of shit that he went through and put my family through. Sheesh, you wouldn't believe it. Just stop gambling. And go to Gamblers Anonymous if you need to. It helped Pop. Someone else comments saying, since almost nobody here has given you actual advice, let me do it. You lost $14,000, which is a lot of money. It's so much money that you feel like you hit rock bottom and probably feel a lot of sadness, anger, guilt, and shame towards yourself in this whole situation. You can't undo the damage that you've done to your own mental health and financial situation, but here's what you can do. Learn from it. It's the least you can do, and here's how. Number one, start sharing. Start talking about what happened with people you trust with your life, parents, girlfriends, siblings, close friends. This will help you with your mental health and clarity, which you need to start rebuilding. And that's what I always say in these videos. Whenever you guys comment or email me with confessions or, you're struggling with something, I always tell you guys, please talk to somebody because it does make it better. And then the commenter says, number two, look for professional help. You're an addict and you need to protect yourself from yourself. This is not something an addict can do by themselves, so you need help and guidance. You don't have to do this by yourself, and realizing that will make you feel so much lighter. Number three, start financial rebuilding. Financial stress is horrible. Once you start saving money again, you'll feel proud and happy. It's a present and it means you're back on track. Go to meetings and keep talking to your loved ones, especially when you feel some kind of urge. Make yourself proud. Stop surviving and start living. And then the final comment I'll read, someone else says, nobody wins at gambling, bro. Nobody. And I just have to agree and emphasize that last tidbit. Nobody wins in gambling. You just can't win. You're just chasing a win that doesn't really exist. And if it does, it exists for 0.000000001% of people, and even they lose. So just not even worth starting. And if anyone watching are dealing with gambling issues, please seek help. And also, I just have to advise against gambling. It's never been easier to gamble. Back in the day, you'd have to go to a casino or go to a different state to gamble. But now it's as easy as pulling out your phone and gambling on this or that or the other thing. And I think it's truly terrible and a horrible addiction that a lot of people are suffering with right now. So if you are watching and going through gambling addiction, please seek help It's not worth it. You will only lose. It's just a slippery slope, and I wish you all the best if you are suffering with gambling addiction. I took some Benadryl, and it has forever completely changed me. I should have known I'd end up here. What started as a way to sleep a little easier turned into something that's taken over my life. I started taking Benadryl a while ago just to help knock me out. But over time, it stopped being about sleep. I started taking more and more. I liked the way it made everything feel distant, like I could turn off my brain. I've talked about it before, as some of you have read. I told myself I was in control, that I could stop whenever I wanted, but that was a lie. I've been hospitalized now. My body couldn't keep up with what I was doing to it. I was hallucinating, disoriented, a shell of myself, hearing my dead mother, seeing the Hat Man, feeling trapped in my own skin. The doctors told me I was lucky to even make it in. Lucky. That word feels weird when you're strapped to a hospital bed, wondering what the hell you've done to yourself. Even now, even after everything, there's still this part of me that wants to go back to it. It scares the hell out of me. I feel like I've rewired my brain, and now I can't find the way back to normal. I don't even remember what normal feels like. I have no one to talk to. Maybe just to get it off my chest. Maybe because I feel like I'm screaming into a void and hoping someone hears me. I don't want to be this person. I want out. I can't keep going like this. I have seen things I can't explain and things I don't know how to explain, like smells, creatures, and I felt like I've been floating in a world beyond my understanding. And now let's get into the comments. Someone says, it's a nightmare drug, and at least one user from this sub died this year. You need to stop now. It's a delirium. It's not fun. It's only addictive and highly dangerous, and the trips sound awful. Please seek help. And then someone comments saying, well, I'm glad Benadryl makes me feel itchy, so I stay away from it. And then some people share their stories. Someone else says, long-term Benadryl use has been linked to dementia in old age. So I'm glad you're getting some help with this. Please stay safe. Best of luck to you. And then a lot of the other comments share their own stories with Benadryl and how it's destroyed their life. And I have some unfortunate news, I think, because I went to the OP's profile, and the OP made one final post about 7 months ago. And the post simply reads, I'm not going to make it. I'm sorry, everyone. And I just saw that final post, and I don't know, it just shook me. Because I don't think the OP made it. And the OP only made the post of the I took some Benadryl and it has forever completely changed me, responded to some comments, and then made that final post about a month later from that post that we just read and saying, I'm not going to make it. I'm sorry, everyone, with one upvote. And I know I said it, but it just shook me because I don't think the OP did make it. I don't know why the OP would lie. Obviously, this didn't get attention. And I think that's what makes this feel so much more eerie and sad and depressing, because the OP saying, I'm not going to make it, I'm sorry, everyone, got one upvote. Nobody saw it. Like, it feels like he's speaking directly to me or to everyone watching, you know? Very eerie and very sad. And I hope the OP said this for whatever reason. Hopefully the OP was just in a state of delirium and said it, and it wasn't truly his last post before he passed, but who knows? This is the last we've ever heard from the OP, and I can only wish the OP the best and hope he's still around. But yeah, this one really, really shook me. I'm having an affair on my wife. 10 months ago, I made the worst decision of my life. I decided to be a stay-at-home dad. Don't get me wrong. I love my daughter and I love being with her, but it has completely ruined my relationship with my wife. I can't fully explain my wife's shift in demeanor towards me, but it's like she has lost all respect for me as a man. We've only had intimate time one time since our daughter was born because she always says that she's not in the mood. We've been together for the better part of a decade, and she's never acted this way towards me. Even while she was pregnant, she didn't treat me this way. I've tried to talk to her about it, but she just says that she can't change how she feels. For these reasons, I've been feeling pretty emasculated. So as the title says, I've been having an affair. The woman I'm having an affair with is one of the moms in my Mommy and Me group. I've known her for, 6 to 7 months now. But we've only been doing this for about a month. I honestly don't know what the fuck I'm doing, and I don't know where I'm going to go from here. All I know is that she makes me feel respected and makes me feel good in a way that my wife doesn't anymore. I want the relationship between my wife and I to return to what it was previously. But even if I went back to work and she started treating me with respect again, I don't know if we could ever go back. And now let's get into some top comments. Someone says, people here are trying to get to the root cause of the issues you and your wife are having. No one is pointing out that you are having relations with another man's partner that has just started their own family. Dude, this is so wrong. So wrong. You're destroying yours and another family. Stop it. Also, stop blaming your wife for your decisions. She makes you feel emasculated. You don't cheat on her to start feeling like a man again. You talk or go to therapy. Then if all else fails, you leave. From one man to another, don't do this. It is shitty. It makes us look bad. Act like a real man and stop whining and get out there and do something about it. Something that preferably doesn't destroy another family. And I can't help but agree with the commenter here because, yeah, he's not only destroying his own family, but also someone else's new family. I mean, that can really cause a lot of damage that is very avoidable. And then I went to the OP's profile and saw that he made an update on the situation. And the title is Update, I'm having an affair with my wife. I made this post sometime in February. A couple of weeks after that I came clean to my wife about what I was doing. It was difficult, but we eventually worked it out. I immediately ended my relationship with the other woman. We went to counseling for a while. I went back to work and I suggested that our daughter go into care, but my wife insisted on taking care of her. The counselor was actually really helpful. I expected her to just tell me that I was the only one in the wrong, but she was actually fairly understanding of what both my wife and I needed. Anyway, since then, we've been doing much better. We have intimacy on a regular basis. We've been going on dates, and we found out last week that she's pregnant again, which we're both really happy about. We're obviously going to handle it very different this time. She's still staying at home with her daughter, and she will be staying at home with this child too. When I made the last post, things were looking pretty bad, and I really didn't think that we'd recover. But for the last 6 months, things have been back to how they were before I was a stay-at-home dad. Better, even. And that's a great update post because I feel like we get a lot of sad posts in these confession videos, and this one had a bright end and a good ending, so that's great and a good testament to how if anyone watching is going through something like that, there's always a light at the end of the tunnel and you can get through anything. I'm dying. I have to talk about it to someone. I can't keep the secret anymore. I have cancer. Brain cancer. Discovered way too late to do something about it. In a month, I'll probably be gone. I just said to my friends that I'm going to my family for a month. Too bad I'm not coming back. I don't want them to see me die. I had the dream of becoming an actor. Now it's a little too late for that. Don't take your life for granted. One day you might find out that it'll be way shorter than you imagine. I don't want to be treated like a victim. I just wanted to take everything I had weighing on my stomach and throw it all out. Edit. Wow, thank you all so much for the support. It means a lot to me. You guys are fantastic. Edit 2. I read all of your comments and it warms my heart like nothing else. Sorry if I don't answer, but you guys are so much that it would be impossible. Still, thanks again. Love you all. I want to say something to you. Throughout the day, ask yourself, if I die right now, would I be happy with what I did in my life? If the answer is yes, then keep doing what you're doing. If the answer is no, then something has to change. I hope this helps. Live life to the fullest. And unfortunately, this post was posted 9 years ago, so we can only assume that the OP has long since passed, but I hope the OP had a great final time living and had a great last few months or last month with his family and friends, hopefully. And I think that ending sentence was so impactful. Live life to the fullest, and if you aren't happy with what you're doing now, make a change, because you never know when, this life might end for you. And yeah, let's get into some comments. Someone says, fuck. I know I'm just a stranger on the internet and my words maybe won't mean much to you, but I think telling your friends about your situation is something you should do, because when they get the notice unexpectedly, they will feel bad for not doing something before. You should thank them for the time you have spent with them and everything they have done for you. I know it is cliche, but if you have something you regret not doing before, now is the time. I truly hope you spend your last days living, not dying. If you want to talk or anything, just PM me. And yeah, I agree. I don't think he should keep it from his friends, because then they might regret it, because, people just assume you're going to be around for longer and they're going to be like, no, I'm not going to see you, or I'm not going to hang out. You're still going to be around, and then you suddenly die and they will live their life and regret not going to see you. And yeah, just a super sad post. And all the comments are extremely supportive, but I just hope that the OP is, in a better place now and doing the best he can and wherever he is. But extremely sad post and very, very impactful. I got into drugs and then a hard downward spiral. Some effects suck. Long read, but I gotta get it off my chest. It started in high school when I loved smoking Zaza. I also discovered adult videos around then and would smoke and watch it. In college, Zaza started giving me bad anxiety, worrying about dumb things, so I stopped. I lived in a European country for 6 months for an internship and discovered the booger sugar. I was hooked. I went broke on booger sugar and booze. Almost cost me my internship. When I got back to the States, I found hookup, and it was shitty, so I eventually quit it. A few years later, I was the manager at a restaurant, and one of the other managers was a mule of sorts. He would hide bricks of fish scale colored booger sugar in the ceiling tile in the bathroom until someone came to pick it up. I got a discount on this stuff, and I was back to using. This time, it was daily, all day. I would get off work around 10, then go to the gym and do some booger sugar in the bathroom and work out for a couple hours. Well, one day the plug dried up, so I went to another worker who knew a guy. I did this stuff at home and it wrecked my nose. Painful. I went to the bar with the other manager who mentioned it had ice in it. He had used it too. I knew it was bad, but the way it made me feel was so different. Crystal clear vision, everything so bright. I felt so energetic and productive. Eventually, I stopped bothering with the cut stuff and got crystal straight up from one of the line cooks. And then he goes into explicit detail of what he did. I can't say it, but he really started to enjoy it. And then he says, I started getting reclusive, staying in my house by myself most days I was off, watching really weird, nasty adult videos. One day, I started seeing what looked like gas vapors, distortion coming from my outlet. I started staring at my outlets in my house for hours. I was getting super paranoid, thinking I had gas leaks in my outlets, constantly looking out my windows for I have no idea what. I started seeing shadows in the corners of my vision. Eventually, I ended up losing my job. After crying about being a failure, I went to the place where the girl I was quasi-dating works. She was often alone. I confessed to the drug spiral, and she completely disowned me. Said she was disgusted and to get out. I went to a bar and got destroyed. alcohol poisoning levels. I stopped the hard stuff cold turkey the next day and started applying for a very different type of job. I ended up getting one, and now I'm decently successful at it. I have a loving wife and a child and a good home, but every now and then I get flashbacks of the sharp sting in my nostrils, and it makes me want to vomit. I still occasionally look at the outlets to see if they're leaking. I have no desire to touch the stuff, but I really want those memories to go away. And now, at this point in this video, this story is once again a great reminder that addiction is a slippery slope, and what might start as an innocent addiction to one thing or an innocent pastime can then spiral and ruin your life and ruin your health and everything. So, just another great reminder. And let's get into some comments. Someone says, the memories are important. If you didn't have them, you wouldn't know not to go there. It sounds like you're adventurous and like to figure out life for yourself. And even more so when you were young. Just take them as a chapter in your life. Been there, done that, don't need to go back. Also, at least now you'll be on top of it if there's an electrical fire. And then the Opie responds saying, I tried to remind myself that the memories of how horrid it was is what's keeping me on track. I still like to drink, but I'll keep that as my vice as it's under control. The electrical fire comment got me laughing. And yeah, everyone just collectively says, I'm glad he made it to the other side. I'm glad the addiction didn't get you, because for a lot of people, once you get to that hard stuff, it is very, very hard to get out and turn your life around. But it sounds like he's doing great now. I hope the OP is doing well. He's still active on his profile, so hopefully he's doing well. If you see this video, reach out, and I hope you're doing well. And yeah, just anyone watching, I hope this is a good reminder to keep control of your addictions and be very, very careful of what you let into your life. I once played pedestrian chicken while driving back when I used to be a drug addict. I've been clean from pills for over 3 years now. However, at the peak of my addiction, about 6 or 7 years ago, I would mix heavy doses of multiple pills combined with alcohol and Zaza, then go out driving. One time, I was messed up driving around with my friend, and I started purposefully veering towards pedestrians, like families pushing prams, old couples, runners, etc., walking on the footpath. And then at the last moment, when I got real close, I would quickly turn away and straighten up in the lane. I guess the intention was to freak them out and get a reaction, which of course it did. I remember doing it maybe 3 or 4 times that day. My friend's reaction was complete shock, and I guess in my state I found that amusing. Could have easily lost control in my drugged up state and crippled someone for life or killed them. I can't ask anyone for forgiveness, seeing as I'm not religious, but damn, do I feel like a piece of shit when I reflect on this sometimes. I can't forgive myself. Anyway, after many DUIs and car crashes and narrowly escaping death numerous times, I eventually went to rehab, sobered up, and no longer own a car or drive. I am so lucky to escape having caused no lasting injury to anyone, including myself. Still, when I'm alone with my thoughts, the day I played Russian roulette with other people's lives, just for kicks, will always return to haunt me. I smoked crystal, and it was the most terrifying experience of my life. It was about 8 days ago, and today is the first day I felt somewhat normal enough to make a post like this. I need to talk to someone about it, but the earliest therapy appointment I could book was on February 5th, and I don't want to talk to family about this, nor do I want to put it on Facebook. Anyway, it started with drinking alcohol, the real gateway drug, and a penchant for putting myself in precarious situations. So, last weekend, after drinking at my friend's house, I was going to hop on the bus and go home. But on the way back, I ended up getting into a conversation with these homeless people. My inhibitions and guard were lowered, so I ended up going back to their tent with them and hanging out for a while. I've been homeless in the past, so this, along with being really drunk, made the situation seem a lot more normal than it really was. They asked if I wanted to smoke some clear, and I impulsively said yes. Of course, I was paying. When we got back in the tent and the crystal was in the pipe, we smoked it. and I smoked probably way more than a first-time user would usually smoke. Besides 2 or 3 hours of feeling pretty nice, the whole thing was fucking horrific. First things first, I was hot as fuck and the foulest, most unnatural sweaty smell was emanating from my body. But no matter how much deodorant or soap I used, nothing could make me smell better. Secondly, the feeling never seemed to ever wear off. And I don't mean in a good way. The fun part is over very quickly. After that, you become like a rat in a cage, just a slave to your impulses and what the crystal does to you. And the amount I smoked kept me up for over 3 days, and I was actually trying to go to bed. I took Tylenol PM and everything. I spent the first 12 hours with an insanely unnatural, intimate drive, and I even hired a lady of the night to be with, but I was tweaking too hard to even calm down, and I couldn't get bricked. So I ended up just getting a hotel and snooking it a lot. But I couldn't even enjoy that because that's when the psychosis kicked in. By this point, I hadn't really slept, so I started having auditory and visual hallucinations, like hearing sirens and imagining that there were people outside my hotel window. I probably spent like 12 hours peeking out of the window blinds, looking for cops or people who might be coming to kill me. And people, I shit you not, this is not like weed paranoia or any other kind of hallucinations you've ever had. I literally thought there were people outside my window. I even called the hotel front desk twice to ask them to tell the people to stop gathering outside my window. And I felt so fucking dumb and confused when the guy came out and checked and told me there were no people there. That was more or less the story of the next couple of days. I was feeling progressively worse and worse and just wanting more than anything to no longer have crystal in my system. But the paranoia and hallucinations were still going strong. I was tweaking and jerking my head around every time I thought I heard a siren or someone walking behind me, and probably looked crazy as fuck to people on the street. It got to the point where I was losing touch with reality, and I had no clue if I was imagining conversations or if they were really happening. I kept hoping that it wasn't permanent and that it would be okay after the crystal wore off. Luckily, that seems to be the case. I do feel a little weird still, but I think part of that is just being really shaken by the experience. After 3 days of everyone looking at me like I was a monster, smelling like unnatural demon sweat, and almost losing my mind, I was finally able to get some sleep. And it took me about 4 days to finally start to feel better. I am entering outpatient rehab next week because if I hadn't been drinking so much, I wouldn't have gotten in such a horrible situation in the first place. Crystal was the most terrifying thing I have ever experienced. But if the experience helps me live a life free of alcohol and other drugs, then I guess it was a good thing in the long run. I bullied my brother to the point his own life. And that is just how the title reads. It's a little bit wonky. I don't know why, but let's get into the post. Hello. This is a little hard to type out, but I feel I must tell someone about what I've done years ago. This whole entire thing took years to even develop before he couldn't take it anymore. I used to be an only child until my little brother came along. I think the main reasons I've even bullied him was because I was jealous how much attention he was receiving from my parents. It started off as normal siblings. We would be kind to each other, play with each other, but eventually I grew to hate him about 4 years after he was born. We would always fight, hit each other. Obviously, every time I hit him, he would cry, but that never stopped me from doing so. Despite getting shouted at by parents that would only fuel my anger with him, I was always a troublemaker at school, would start fights with other kids, using lame insults that would make the kids upset. I never knew to contain my anger. Now back to my brother. While he was in grades 7 through 10, I would always shit talk him, despite him always being kind to me, wanting to hang out with me. Yet I always turned him down and insulted him. Even with his schooling, he would be a straight A student. I would still talk down on him about how stupid he is, why is he even alive, how spoiled he is. No matter what he did, it would always piss me off in some way or another. He was a very kind brother. Despite how he would sometimes mimic some of the bad stuff he'd see online, all he needed was to be guided properly by an older brother he never got. Instead, he would be physically and verbally abused by his older brother, not knowing exactly why. But before he could even get the chance to graduate high school and go to college, he ended up committing S-word. Family and friends never knew why, but obviously I did. It never sunk in what I caused until a month after, when we were at his funeral. Years has passed since the incident, and I still cry thinking about the way I treated him. It pains me very much to even type this out. Always frustrated at what I've done in the past. Took away a life of a wonderful little brother. Took away his future before we even became proper siblings. I'll never see him grow up anymore, nor will anything I do atone for my actions. I will carry this burden that I've brought upon myself until the day I die. I'm sorry for what I've done. I've straightened up my life, never resorting to violence with other people or doing anything horrible to others. Will live the rest of my life being an honest and kind person, someone that my brother could have looked up to. Thank you for reading. And man, that is just so sad. These posts in today's video are just crazy. But let's get into some top comments. Someone says, "You were his burden in life. Now he will be the burden the rest of yours." And wow, that is a hell of a way to put it. You were his burden in life, and now he will be your burden. Wow. That just really hits hard. And that's just the top comment. That is just, wow, that really hits hard. He put it perfectly. I mean, wow. Someone else says, "I have no words." Someone replies saying, "My thoughts too. I have nothing positive to say, so I'll keep moving." And Jesus Christ, man. What a post. In the final comment I'll read on this post, someone says, "My sister was like you. I still suffer psychologically every single day. It took her moving across the country for us to get along. This is your punishment. You get to live with what you did." And wow. And this is the only single post on the entirety of the OP's profile. This is the only post, no comments, no anything. And the OP's name is nothing but regrets. Jeez, this post just hit really hard. I mean, that is just such a depressing situation because obviously the OP now has to live with that burden that he bullied his brother to death, really. And his brother is now no longer living and can no longer live the life he could have lived. And yeah, that is just so shocking and so sad. Such a sad situation. I tricked mentally ill and poor people into doing degrading stuff on camera. Exactly as the title says. A couple of years ago, I was heavily into booger sugar. So my friends and I would stay up all night just talking to each other in my apartment for many nights in a row. Most people who have done a lot of drugs know that playing video games and watching movies is really not that fun to do while doing lines all night. So we started doing a lot of weird things, like this instead. One night, for some reason, we started messing with this mentally ill guy who we went to school with on Facebook, who thinks he died when he crashed his car on drugs a couple of years back and got a major psychosis from the incident. The guy now fully believes he is dead and makes these weird Facebook rants, telling people he is seeing and talking to angels and demons and that he is dead. One night, we call up the guy, posing as a local newspaper that wants to write an article about him. He and my friend had the strangest conversation ever. He kept the conversation going for almost 2 hours, while I recorded for the whole thing as an MP3 on my phone. The next day, I presented the clip to all of my friends who were totally ecstatic, and we all think it's the funniest thing we've ever heard. We start messing with this guy almost every night after work, writing him as God, making him record weird songs from heaven and hell, making him take weird photos of himself, etc. But after a week of shenanigans, his caretaker or whoever makes him delete his Facebook account because the rants online are getting out of control. After realizing that messing with this guy was funny as shit, but that we could no longer do it, we started looking for new victims. First, we start trolling our local high school's Facebook group, posing as this pair of effed up parents, but are eventually found out and kicked out. Then we start trolling the local vegans selling horse meat and other stuff, but eventually they make the group private and only members they know personally can join. After that, we start trolling all sorts of local groups on Facebook. To join these local groups, you have to have an account that looks somewhat believable. So we would go on these religious boards and make posts praising God. That shit gets a lot of activity. And just start adding people until we had a ton of friends and the account would look somewhat real. The people most active on these religious boards are people from places in Africa that are very poor. And these people are willing to do anything for a couple of bucks. So we will start calling up random strangers that look like they are willing to do anything for money, sending them a bit of cash via Western Union to make them try and do backflips while I record it. That crazy part is that once you send that first dollar, they know that there's more where it's coming from, and you now have your own personal gesture overseas, and they will do literally anything as long as you send them that first bit of cash. So then it became almost like a new addiction for me. I was promising these poor people a big cash prize. Of course, there was no prize if they did what I told them to do on the webcam so I could record it. The most effed up part is that I enjoyed doing it and found it hilarious. I used to only do it with friends so we all could laugh at it together. But later, I often just sat alone, calling/writing these poor people and making them do weird and degrading stuff on webcam. Jeez, man. And now let's get into some top comments. Someone says, "This is definitely a confession. Yikes." And yeah, this is horrible. I missed the birth of my daughter because I was high on H. I stayed away from drugs all throughout my youth, but after college, I started experimenting and I ended up getting addicted to the big H. It completely destroyed my life. I lost my job, my girlfriend, my apartment, pretty much all of my friends, and I spent 2 months living on the street. When I was 25, I joined a support group and I managed to get clean and get my life back together. At almost the exact moment I had been clean for 1 year, I met my wife. I had been with many women when we met, but from our first date, I knew that I wanted to marry her, and I took the timing as a sign. I proposed to her on our 1-year anniversary, and she said yes. We got married 3 months later, and 4 months after that, she fell pregnant. I was excited at first, but after a little while, I began to worry about the responsibility. Once you have a child, you're stuck with the responsibility for life. You can't just quit like you can a job. You can't just move once you get tired of being in the same spot because you'll completely uproot his or her life and everything he or she knows. What if I fall in love with my child and then she divorces me and gets full custody? If she has my child and then leaves, she can claim child support and I have virtually no say. She can essentially make me into an indentured servant. If I'm making $80,000 a year and she leaves me, a judge can force me to pay that rate of child support even if I can't find another job that'll pay me that much. And if I don't, then I'll be put in jail. I love her with all my heart, but if she gets bored of me and decides to leave, she can use all of these things against me. Do I really want to risk it? I was pretty scared of the whole thing, but it was happening now and there was no way out. All of the pressure made me just start thinking about doing H again. Maybe if I could just do it one more time, I'd get it out of my system and then I can move forward. It kept bouncing around in my head, and when my wife was almost 5 months pregnant, I did H for the first time in almost 3 years. 2 weeks shy of being 3 years clean. This is the last time, I said. Then later that week, I did it again, and I told myself, all right, this really is the last time. Just like that, I was hooked again. She noticed that I was acting weird, but she knew that I was really nervous about having a child, so she gave me space. When she was about 30 weeks pregnant, she went into labor. She had been having contractions most of the night, but her doctor said not to worry. The morning she went into labor, I told her that I was going fishing with my friends, but the truth is that I spent the whole day lying on a mattress in a storage shed high on H. When I woke up, I had 39 missed calls, and I'm not sure how many messages. When I realized what was going on, I cleaned myself up and got down to the hospital as quickly as I could, but I'd missed everything. Her mom and sister were there. My wife was just as happy to see me, but her mom gave me a big lecture about how irresponsible I was. I apologized profusely and lied about my phone being out of range. Our daughter is 14 weeks old now. It's been really difficult, but I haven't done drugs since that day. I don't remember it being this difficult last time. My wife knows that I used to be addicted to H, but she doesn't know that I started using again. I want to tell her that I slipped up, but I don't want her to doubt my ability to take care of our family, and I don't want her to think that I'll be a bad father. And oh my God, that is such a heartbreaking post. So heartbreaking. I can't imagine being the OP, waking up and seeing you missed your daughter's birth. And the reason you missed it was because you were strung out. God, that is just so horrifying. Now let's get into some comments. Someone says, I know it's hard right now, but you really need to find a professional to talk to. We can't go through stuff like this alone. Having a kid is challenging, and it's an identity shift for everyone. My wife relapsed a month after we brought our son home after 10 years of sobriety. It wasn't H, but she was sneaking hard liquor. I suspected, and she lied to me about it. Not good. The best thing she did for herself and me was to be honest with me and get help. She's much more stable now, and the relapse was a blip on the radar, but she had some serious stuff to process through. Therapy was vital for her healing. Also, your wife has a right to know what's going on with you. Wait until you're getting help, but don't drag your feet. H is no joke, as you know, and it's not safe for you or your baby for your wife to not know about your struggles. Please don't try to tough it out or man up or whatever. You'll feel better with support. And this is just insane, and it goes for all of you and goes without saying, if you are struggling with addiction, please get help and do not try to do it by yourself. Horrifying horror stories from Reddit. Don't Look for Lady Bluebell. Written by Saturdead. They say that things change when you observe them. For example, my mom would look so proud at my childhood soccer games, but she'd immediately change the moment she noticed me on the substitute bench. A moment of observation, intended or not, can change everything. One summer, my parents drove me out to a nearby national park. They had a junior ranger club where kids were introduced to all manners of wildlife knowledge and survival trivia. I wasn't sure about it at first. It seemed like just another thing on a long list of nothings. But I gave it an honest shot, along with a dozen other kids, and the chemically positive ranger accompanying us. We had craft sessions, survival training, cave exploration, and all kinds of games. Unlike sports, it wasn't just about beating an opponent. This was about cooperation, to work together. Seeing us all work towards a common goal changed something in me. Brought out something good. I enjoyed that. Back in July of '98, all 12 junior rangers set out on a spotlight night walk. Along with our guide, we were to pack our own survival kit and make our way to one of the ranger stations. There, we'd unpack and be graded based on what we'd chosen to bring. There was this excitement in the air. It was like a graduation of sorts. We were to become official wildlife stewards, they called it. We excitedly paired up in a buddy system, 2 by 2, and followed the trail. It was supposed to be uneventful. The man in charge, Ranger Dan, had done that walk every summer for the past 12 years. He was prepared for a lot of things, but nature had other plans that night. I remember him holding up a hand, silently asking us to stop and listen. There was this deep groaning noise off somewhere in the dark. I heard rustling bushes and crackling saplings. I saw two gleaming stones reflecting the shine of our flashlights. A black bear. Looking back at it, it really wasn't as bad as it sounds. The bear sniffed at Ranger Dan for a bit and wandered off, but to a group of 10-year-olds, it was like staring at death itself. My buddy panicked and bolted into the woods. We're not allowed to ever leave our buddy, so I did my best to keep up with him. I yelled at him to stop, but by the time he did, we'd been separated from the rest of the group. I couldn't even see their flashlights anymore. Luckily, they used to have a system in place to help lost visitors navigate. They called it the Lady Bluebell system. All over the park, they'd wrap blue tape around the trees and tie a bell in the direction of the closest ranger station or trail. Even in the dark, you could hear a bell go off every now and then, and you could check the bell to get a direction. Spotting that blue tape immediately improved our odds of survival. We'd been taught that if all else fails, all we had to do was to follow 3 simple rules. Stop, listen, look. Lady Bluebell takes you home. Those were the rules. That first moment when I realized we were lost was horrifying. I could barely breathe, like I was choking on the darkness. My buddy was having a panic attack, but I did what I've been told to do. To stop, listen, look. Lady Bluebell would take me home. And I swear, not only did I hear that bell, I saw her. A tall woman in a blue dress off in the distance. A sun-tanned arm pointing us in the direction of the trail. Long, dark hair framing a brilliant smile. A warm presence in the dark of night. Maybe I remember it wrong. Maybe she wasn't really there. But I think she was. My buddy and I were probably lost for no more than 20 minutes. We made our way back to the trail. Not long after that, we spotted flashlights in the distance. The rest of the night was nothing but praise from Ranger Dan, all the hot dogs we could eat, and scary stories told by a roaring campfire. I never told anyone about seeing Lady Bluebell. Not a living soul. My mom thought that night would be the end of my interest in the Junior Ranger Club. That it'd scare me away. But strangely, it had the opposite effect. I had used what I'd learned to survive to win. And this wasn't just winning a game. This was winning at life itself. I'd faced real, actual danger and lived to tell the tale. That's when I knew I wanted to be a park ranger. I got my Bachelor of Science in Forest and Natural Resource Management from MSU, worked a few different jobs, took a sabbatical, and ended up with a position at the Minnesota Department of Natural Resources in 2009. Nowadays, I'm the one running the Junior Ranger Club. Ranger Dan retired back in 2018, but still volunteers for the club in the summer. I've acquainted myself with the area for over a decade. I'm confident when I say that I know my way around. I know what animals roam which areas, and I can tell by these shifting seasons what is to come. I know how flash floods smell, and I can tell by the taste of the air when a lightning storm is coming. Still, every now and then, Mother Nature surprises me, and sometimes she gives way to something different entirely. The park has changed a lot too. The Lady Bluebell program, for example. Over the years, it evolved into a sort of mascot. She was portrayed as this radiant woman in a blue summer dress. She also had her sidekicks like the mischievous Ricky Raccoon and the ever somber Sunny the Sad Sunflower. There were comic books, trading cards, stamps, merchandise. She was a beloved icon. They hired a woman to dress like her every summer, to welcome the Junior Rangers and teach them the system. Lady Bluebell was sort of our Smokey the Bear. telling kids how to behave in the park to keep themselves and others safe. I loved it. Long after the end of Junior Ranger Club came to an end, I still collected all sorts of Lady Bluebell memorabilia. But there were issues. Over time, some visitors to the park began stealing the blue tape, keeping it as a souvenir. Others just took the bell. Some moved the bell around, purposefully pointing it in the wrong direction. Over time, the effort and resources required to constantly fix the system started to outweigh the benefits. They officially ditched the Lady Bluebell Takes You Home motto in 2008 and retired the mascot entirely in 2011. I was sad to see her go, but it made sense. It just wasn't practical anymore. Times change. Now that you know me a little better, I want to tell you about one particular incident. Something I haven't been able to share with my friends and colleagues. It was late August. I was following our southeasternmost trail, mapping the movements of an elk herd. The leaves were just about to change color, and there was a tinge of cold in the air. Branches had started making snappier sounds, and the days were rapidly growing shorter. Autumn was just around the corner. That day, I was ready to head back when I spotted a plume of smoke just off my trail. Nothing big, possibly a campfire. I decided to give it a once-over, just in case. I came upon a small camp, a rough-looking one-man tent, neon orange, a hastily constructed campfire with what looked like a grilled squirrel. I caught a whiff of sweat coming off the tent, giving me the impression that whoever lived there had been around for a while. Looking at their choice of meat, I figured maybe a bit too long. "Hello?" I called out. "Anyone here?" I heard a shout in response and hurried footsteps. Someone falling, getting up, and then sprinting in my direction. At first, I was taken aback, thinking it might be a wild animal. Seconds later, a young woman crawled into camp. The best word to describe her was disheveled. Her hair was a tangled mess, and she was deeply sunburnt on her arms and face. Her lips were dry and pale, and her hands were shaking. The moment she saw me, her eyes welled up with tears. "Yes," she cried. "Jesus Christ, yes." She got up and flung her arms around me, crying onto my shoulder. Not just a sob either, but a full-on wail. She tried to say something, but every word got stuck in her throat. Did I make it?" she sniffled. "Am I out?" I sat her down, offered her some water, and asked her to calmly explain what happened. I can't believe my luck," she said. "I thought it was all over." I choked on my words. Nothing had prepared me for this. We weren't out looking for anyone. We hadn't been for months, maybe years. "It's okay," I said. Let's pack up. Let's get you home." Her name was Anya Baker. She'd been part of a company retreat and got lost somewhere along the way. She figured she'd been on her own for about 2 weeks, but there was no way to tell for sure. "The days kinda blend," she sighed. "You keep walking, and it might have been an hour or 2 days. It messes with your head." She was malnourished and dehydrated. I didn't think she had the strength to make it back. The closest ranger station was quite a way off. I asked if I could help her carry something, but she brushed me off. "I got this," she insisted. "Please just get me home." We got back on the trail and started making our way back. I took out my radio to call it in. "I used to come here all the time," Anya said. "Never thought I'd get lost." "It happens to the best of us," I smiled. "You made it. That's what counts." I thought I did it right. I stopped, listened, and looked. Followed the bells. All of it. We don't do that anymore. I figured. I told Anya about how the Lady Bluebell program had been discontinued for over a decade. I complained about the sabotaged bells, the stolen tape, and all the stupid things that tourists had done over the years. Frankly, I found it strange she'd found any bells at all. I hadn't seen them for years. But there were more immediate concerns. I'd never had trouble with my radio before, and now it was dead as a doornail. I brought out my backup batteries, but the radio stayed silent. Still, Anya was in better shape than I'd anticipated, so I figured we'd make it back by nightfall if we kept a good pace. About 200 feet down the trail, something started to feel wrong. The trail should have turned by then, heading west. Instead, it kept going north. Looking around, I couldn't see any of the usual landmarks. We continued for another 10 minutes, only to see the trail suddenly stop. Not slowly disappear into the moss, but stop altogether. There were no trails like that. Not on that hike. Not for as long as I'd been there. I wasn't taking any chances, and there was no point dwelling on it. The radio was busted, so I picked up my flare gun. It was only one shot, so I had to make it count. I aimed up, asked Anya to step back, and fired. The light soared into the sky with a whoosh, bathing the treetops in an intense red glow. Those things are louder than you think. It's nothing like the movies. Now we sit tight, I said. They can't find us if we keep moving. So we buddy up, Anya smiled. That's what you're supposed to do, right? That's right, I nodded. You a junior ranger? Anya made herself comfortable on a log and took a swig from my canteen. Lady Bluebell takes you home, she sighed. She shook her head and handed back my canteen. A twinkle in her eye came and went. Not anymore, it seems. We stayed out there for hours. We shared a protein bar, and Anya helped me set up a campfire. To my surprise, there was a stream nearby. There wasn't supposed to be, but there was. We boiled some water, refilled my canteen, and made ourselves comfortable. It could be hours before someone got to us. It didn't take long for the sky to turn black. I figured no one would find us in the dark, so we set up camp. Anya had her tent and I had a hammock. We both went to bed early, but I couldn't get any sleep. My new buddy was out cold though. I guess the excitement of seeing another person for the first time in weeks was enough to wear her out. I, on the other hand, was anxious about not finding my way back. It didn't make any sense. I'd walked that trail 1,000 times. Somewhere in the space between the waking world and an uneasy sleep, I remember thinking about Lady Bluebell. Her 3 rules were simple: stop, listen, look. First, to stop, so you don't get more lost than you already are. Second, to listen. The sound of the bells usually travels much farther than the sight of the blue tape. And the third rule, to look, was a reminder to identify which way the bells were positioned. I remember thinking that we'd already done the first part. We'd stopped. A part of me wanted to listen, like I'd done back when I was a kid, to hear that bell and find my way back. As sleep faded from my mind, my eyes drifted into the dark. I noticed a strip of blue tape wrapped around a nearby tree. Strange that I hadn't seen it before. Maybe it wasn't there until I started to look for it. Anya was awake long before I was. She'd heated up a bag of chickpeas from my bag and sliced up some salami. Simple stuff, but all you needed to keep going. I went to refill the canteen again, but couldn't find my way back to the stream. Realizing it just wasn't there anymore made my blood run cold. I wasn't used to doubting myself. I knew these woods like the back of my hand, and suddenly it felt like I'd found an extra finger. None of this made any sense. I checked my map and double-checked my compass. There was nothing even close to a landmark in our vicinity. There were no obvious elevations, lakes, or rivers. I was running out of options. It took me a moment to realize that Anya was staring at me from across the campfire, having picked up on my anxious fiddling. She gave me a reassuring smile. "I saw her once, you know," she said, "back when I was a junior." "It's not uncommon," I added. "Lots of kids think they see her." We all made her up in our minds, trying to convince one another that she was real. "No, I mean, I really saw her. Dress and all, tall as hell." Anya finished up her last spoonful of chickpeas. "I was out fetching firewood. I wasn't even lost. She just stood there, looking at me." Shadows can play tricks on us. "No, see, that's the thing," Anya laughed. "It was the middle of the day." We waited all day long, morning, afternoon, and long into the night. Still not a soul to be seen. No flares going up, no sounds in the distance. It was just me, Anya, and miles of forest. A forest that should be familiar to me, but somehow wasn't. We decided that, come morning, we would make our way back on our own. Heading straight north should bring us to one of the main trails, no matter our approaching angle. I couldn't bring myself to tell Anya that I, too, had seen Lady Bluebell. After all these years, I still couldn't believe it, even though it'd been just as clear as the way Anya just described it. That night, I stayed up listening to the howling wind. I tried to ignore it, but I couldn't. I couldn't help but listen. And the more I tried to avoid it, the more I heard it. And there, hidden in the breeze, was something else. Distant bells, urging me to look. To look for Lady Bluebell. The next day, we packed up and got moving. Anya was much better off than when I first met her. Having snacked on most of my backup rations, I still had some left, but we'd have to start foraging soon. Still, the trail shouldn't be more than a few hours out, at most. But then again, nothing seemed to be where it ought to anymore. We hiked through a clearing, stepping over collapsed trees and knee-length grass. Then I spotted something in the distance. I waved Anya over, and we took a detour. It was one of our old stop, listen, look signs. I hadn't seen one in years. It was a bit roughed up, but still legible. However, it'd been slightly altered. Someone had added "don't" to every line with a bright blue paint. Don't stop. Don't listen. Don't look. Lady Bluebell won't take you home. Did you? No. Anya interrupted. That's new. We came to the same conclusion. We weren't alone out there. We continued north, but I couldn't help the feeling that there was something off about the whole area. I started to notice little details all around, broken branches and paths in the grass. There was a spot next to a large rock that looked like someone had been sleeping next to it. The tracks were pretty distinct. I even found a few footprints, and Anya swore that she'd never been there before. By late afternoon, I was getting worried. Not only had there been more footprints and tracks, but they were getting fresher. We slowed our pace, and I started to take a better look around. I needed to get an estimate of just how many others were out there. I was following the tracks of about 3 people when I saw another clearing ahead of us. It took me a few moments to realize that we had effectively walked in a circle. We were back at square one. I could even see the stop, listen, look sign in the distance. I brought out my compass, took Anya by the arm, and stormed off. We had to try again. I don't know when and where we got turned around, but we couldn't stop now. We kept going north, and this time I didn't put away my compass for a second. We settled into a steady jog, making sure the clearing stayed behind us. Anya kept a steady pace, even if she made a lot of noise. At one point, we stopped to drink some water. I looked back for a second, only to see something in the distance. I couldn't tell what it was, but it was standing upright. No, not just standing. Running. At first, we didn't understand what we were looking at. It took me several seconds to realize it was even human. A young man, no older than 17, maybe 18. Rough hair with cuts all over his legs and arms. He was only wearing a pair of torn jeans, darkened by weeks of built-up dirt. He didn't run like people usually do. He was hunched over and flailing with his arms. He kept doing this strange motion with his neck, like a bobblehead, never standing still. As he got closer, I could hear this constant mumbling, not a scream or a whisper. It was like he was trying to maniacally force little words into every exhaled breath. I couldn't hear what he was saying. I only understood that it was repeating. Anya backed away, but it was clear that he was heading straight for us. That's when I noticed the sharpened flint in his hand. Before I realized what was about to happen, he charged at us. He went for Anya first, but she was too quick for him. As she ducked behind a tree, I moved to intercept. I grabbed my camping shovel from the side of my backpack and took a wild swing. As our attacker turned to face me, my swing clocked him right across the side of the face. There was a deeper cut than I'd anticipated, severing parts of his ear. He reeled back and fell over. He struggled to regain his balance, but the head trauma made his eyes spin. His mouth kept opening and closing like a fish out of water, forming these same words over and over again. Don't stop, don't stop, don't listen. His eyes locked onto mine. His pupils widened as a shiver worked its way into his voice. Shaking his head, a tear escaped him. Don't look, he quivered. Don't look. His eyes flicked to something off my side, a piece of tape, hanging off a broken tree. As I tried to assess his wound, he burst into movement. No longer able to run straight, he toppled over into a bent-over gallop, bracing himself against trees and stumps as he fled in panic. I heard branches snapping long after he was out of the sight. Anya just stood there, frozen. I tried to put my hand on her shoulder, but she reflexively slapped it away. I could see she was on the verge of hyperventilating, barely holding on. Just give me a second, she said. Please. After that, we slowed down. I kept hearing noises in the distance, mumbled words and snapping twigs, and sometimes, when there was a sudden gust of wind, there'd be bells. Sometimes one, sometimes several. But we stayed the course, moving north. As night fell, I realized that I didn't want to stop. Whenever I stopped, the sounds would get louder. The bells would get closer. Whatever lurked in the dark seemed to gain on us. Even though nothing leapt out at us, and there were no more attacks, I had this constant sense of unease, like sleeping in gasoline right next to a wobbly candle. Anya wasn't faring much better. She sat next to our campfire for hours, slowly rocking back and forth. Sometimes I'd see her snapping her head in one direction or the other, as if reacting to a noise that only she could hear. I twisted and turned for hours, barely keeping my eyes shut. It felt like the night would never end. The more I thought about it, the slower time seemed to move. I remember staring up at the night sky, waiting for the moon to come into view. It never did. Anya told me she would wake me up before going to sleep so we could take turns keeping watch. It didn't do me much good though. I was just as awake as she was. I got about an hour's worth of sleep, all in all. Anya didn't get any. She didn't even bother to set up her tent. When I finally got up, it was still dark out. I checked my wristwatch, but it stopped just before midnight. Anya was still up, staring into the cinders of the campfire. We had plenty of firewood, but she just couldn't be bothered to put them on. I got up from my hammock and stretched. It's been more than a couple of weeks, said Anya. Time stopped making sense long ago. What was the last date you remember? Late July, I think. That's not too bad, I smiled. Just a couple of weeks out. I dug out the remaining salami from my pack and cut me a slice. I sat down across from her. At the other end of the campfire, I put a log on and watched the fire crackle back to life. Then something whispered in the back of my mind. An obvious question that I hadn't considered. Up until now, it'd been too absurd to ask. What year? Anya and I locked eyes. I could see the stark realization boiling in the back of her mind. I repeated the question. What year, Anya? Who's the president? She didn't respond. Something cold crawled up my spine as a thought settled. I didn't know who the hell was sitting across from me, or what they'd really seen. Where were we even going? We should pack up, she said, breaking the tension. It's still dark out. Sometimes it stays that way for a while. As Anya packed up, I felt deflated. She was holding something back. If we were to make it out, in any capacity, we needed to work together. Follow the buddy system. Anya, you're not making any sense. Sometimes it stays dark. She breaks the rules to keep us here. What are you talking about? I've been here so long that I don't know what's real anymore. I thought I could trick myself into forgetting, but she won't let me. She's there. She's always there. I didn't say anything. Anya kept pacing back and forth, scratching the back of her head. I wrote the damn sign, she growled. Because when you stop, she's there. When you listen, you hear her. And when you look. Anya grabbed my shoulder and turned me around. When you look, there she is. At first, I didn't see anything. Maybe I didn't want to. But there was that gnawing doubt in the back of my mind, something in my reptile brain telling me I was looking for something. Slowly, the shadows twisted. They bent out of shape, forming something new. With every blink of my eye, a picture created itself in the distance. A vague silhouette of a bone-thin woman. A few tufts of hair clinging to a decrepit scalp. A broken jaw hanging like a loose thread, swaying back and forth with a sudden breeze. A sour smell wafted my way, coating my tongue with a spike of ammonia. And of course, there it was. Her signature blue dress, assuring to one and all that there could be no mistake. Lady Bluebell. Anya, what is... I looked back, only to see Anya backing away. She was packed and ready to go. She'd taken my canteen, and I could see my pack lying next to the campfire, wide open. There was a palpable fear in her eyes, like a wild animal. I can't let her take me, Anya wheezed. I'm sorry, I'm so sorry. Before I got the chance to process what she'd done, a sound cut through the forest breeze. Bells. So many bells. I turned to see the broken woman towering over me. She was so much taller than expected. My legs buckled as I looked up at no less than a 9-foot-tall monstrosity. Her torn blue dress was lined with bells that chimed against every branch and root she passed over. She wasn't going to let me leave. She refused to be forgotten. I shouldn't have stopped, or listened, or looked. I stepped back and she stepped forward. Her feet barely touched the ground, floating inches above the moss. Her ivory eyes burrowed into me, shrieking with desperation. She wouldn't let me go home. She couldn't. I turned to flee. I ran and jumped and crawled and forced myself past every obstacle. I snagged my foot on fallen rocks. I tumbled down a sudden slope, dropping half my gear. I stepped through a shallow mire, drenching myself in cold water all the way to my knees. I bloodied my hands and feet and face, but I kept going. And somewhere along the way, the sun rose. Wheezing for air, I realized I couldn't hear the bells anymore. But the moment I stopped to listen for them, I heard one. "No," I yelled out loud. "No, no, no, stop thinking." I bit down on my thumb and screamed. I shouldn't listen. I shouldn't stop either. I had to keep going. It all reminded me of what my teachers had said years ago, how the world changed when we observed it. Maybe if it wasn't for the people coming, listen, and look, there would be nothing to see there. Maybe by keeping people around, a part of her collective self remains. I don't know how long I was out there. At least a couple of days. I kept moving, stopping only for short bursts of rest. Sometimes I'd dream of bells, and I'd wake to hear them. The slightest thought of Lady Bluebell drew her to me like a moth to an open flame. I'd heard the bells long before I saw her, but one would always accompany the other. She was always there, a stray thought away. I survived by eating boiled pine cones, roots, and eggs from warbler nests. I tried to track my progress, but there was no way to navigate. I'd either end up where I came from or going in the wrong direction. I saw that same sign in that same clearing at least a dozen times. Don't stop. Don't listen. Don't look. My feet chafed, and I'd grown a solid bear stubble. Having barely slept, I was having trouble shaping cohesive thoughts. I remember sitting by a stream, not knowing how I got there. Maybe the same stream I'd seen that first day of meeting Anya. I was wringing out my socks and trying my best to ignore my shivering hands. I felt so weak that I couldn't remember what strength felt like. Just getting back on my feet felt like such a monolithic task that I couldn't force myself to do it. I resigned to sitting there with one naked foot in the ice-cold water. My skin color faded as my blood cooled from a painful purple to a sickly blue. It took me a few moments to realize I wasn't alone. But it wasn't Lady Bluebell. It was Anya, just across the stream. She looked at me with this air of pity, apologetically even. It took me a few seconds to notice the makeshift spear she'd whittled, using the Swiss Army knife from my pack, no doubt. "I really am sorry," she said. "After she feeds, she calms down. When she's calm, you can get out. I had to bring someone new in. The others are too fast, too clever." I didn't even care. I couldn't bring myself to curse or scream. I just hated Anya and what she turned into. I kept my eyes on the stream, watching the water turn my foot a new tint of blue. "Just take a nap," she said. "Lean back and let it happen. No fuss, no drama." I barely listened. All I could think of was that tinge of blue forming at the edge of my toe. It made me think of her. It made me think of bells. It made me look for her. "That's it," said Anya, readying her spear. "I'll just give you a little tap to make sure we won't have any problems." I looked down at my hands, covered in scabs and bruises, my wet socks clinging to my thigh. Suddenly, a pain shot through my left leg. A quick jab from her spear, and my body exploded with damaged nerves. It was as if a burst of electricity shot through me. forcing me out of my lethargy as my blood mixed with the stream. I could feel my heart beating out of my chest. I crawled backwards, unable to put any weight on my leg. Anya backed away, staying just close enough to make sure Lady Bluebell was properly fed. And the lady was already there. Maybe I'd listened too long, or looked too hard. Maybe it was just the blue tint of my toe. Whatever it was, my thoughts had drawn her to me. And this time, I couldn't run. I heard the bells dragging my way, and saw a long shadow cover the ground. I looked back for a moment, catching a glimpse of her dead eyes coming my way. Lady Bluebell didn't take you home anymore. I couldn't run, but I had to try something. Anything. I tied my wet socks together into a makeshift blindfold and put it on as tight as I could. I pushed my wet fingers into my ears and screamed. I figured that if I couldn't listen or look, maybe she'd be less interested in feeding on me. I focused on the pain in my leg as hard as I could, letting it envelop my thoughts. I knew she was closing in. My pulse went haywire, begging me to panic, to look back, to listen for threats, and run, to know what to expect, and prepare myself. But I didn't. There was the soft touch of a cloth against my head. Little pieces of metal bells dragged across my body as Lady Bluebell passed me by. She didn't care for someone who couldn't look or listen. But Anya could. Anya did. Keeping the sock blindfold on, I flopped onto my belly. I kept my fingers in my ears, screaming until my throat was raw. I felt a thumping in the ground as something was dropped, and quick footsteps in rapid succession. Someone was running. Then a sudden stop. For what felt like an eternity, it was just me and my thoughts. Maybe she got away. Maybe we both made it. Then something meaty bumped into me. Something warm and wet. It splattered onto my clothes and stained my face, drowning the air with a stench of blood. There was a reverb in the air, like the vibration of a scream. But I didn't turn to look. I didn't turn to listen. And I refused to stop. Hours later, I made myself a crutch. I pressed wet moss into my ears and kept the blindfold tight. Blind and deaf. I forced myself forward. It was just inches at a time. And every step of the way shot through me like a bolt of lightning. And somewhere along the way, I felt a solid trail under my feet. Taking off the blindfold, I started to notice familiar landmarks. My clock started ticking, and my radio burst to life. I was back on familiar ground. Maybe Anya had been right. Lady Bluebell was more relaxed after her feeding. Civilization was just around the corner, waiting for me to observe it once again. I'd been gone for 6 weeks. It was none other than Ranger Dan that came across me, leading a group of junior rangers across the same trail as all those years ago. And yes, he had hot dogs. Now that some time has passed and my leg is healed, I've retreated to an administrative position. I keep my exposure to the park minimal. I haven't told anyone about what really happened. Not only because it sounds completely insane, but because knowing about it might actually put them in danger. I might not get along with everyone, but I wouldn't wish for anyone to come looking for Lady Bluebell. Anya Baker was, indeed, reported missing from a company retreat about 8 years prior. The strange young man was a mystery. No one matching his description has been seen for years. Looking back at it, it feels so obvious. Anya had been so frantically preoccupied with fighting her way forward that she never really considered the very first rule: to just stop. Perhaps there is some greater lesson to be learned. There were so many of us that never wanted Lady Bluebell to leave. We stopped along the trails to listen and look, hoping some part of her was still out there. Maybe we were just looking for our childhoods. I know I was. I believe that she was some collective consciousness of belief, remaining in a forgotten part of what the park used to look like. A creature we all made and abandoned, like the ghost of someone who never truly was. Maybe the world changes when we look at it, and sometimes it changes when we don't. And in the deep dark of those unseen chasms, things still grow, unheard, unseen, and unstoppable. No one understands me anymore. I mean that literally. Written by Sophie the Toad. This all began 3 weeks ago, after my almost year-long relationship with my ex ended. Things were amazing with Lily at first. She was hot, way out of my league. But what really made me fall for her was how well we meshed together. How seamlessly we understood each other. She met my every need, big or small. I'd have only just put my fork down to reach for the tomato sauce, and she'd already be passing it to me. I'd sink onto the couch, in the mood for a good horror movie, and before I could suggest the idea, she'd smile and say, "This feels like a horror movie night." I'd wake up from some pretty heated dreams, and she'd already be swinging her leg over me, ready to start the morning exactly how I imagined it. So after 5 months, I made the very smart, not all too soon decision of asking her to move in with me. It was amazing. At first, she was the first girl I'd ever met who didn't care if I played video games for hours, because she'd just sit beside me the whole time, watching me play. She didn't care what I did, as long as I was within reach. Always within reach. Her nails would trail circles on the back of my neck, glide along my arms, or she'd just rest her foot on top of mine. She constantly wanted me in touching distance. I loved it at first. I knew we were probably getting a bit too attached to each other. I stopped seeing my friends as much. I called my family less. Then one day after work, the guys invited me to the pub. It made me realize it'd been way too long since I hung out with them. I didn't see the problem and texted Lily to let her know I'd be home late. Just a few pints. There was a skimpy at the bar, so I didn't stay long. I didn't even look at her. I averted my eyes out of respect for Lily. I was a good guy, a good boyfriend. When I got home, Lily was livid. "You went to the Skimpy's bar?" There wasn't a bar in our rural mining town without Skimpies, and I barely even stayed an hour. But I didn't argue. I felt guilty at the hurt in her eyes as she sobbed into my chest. I didn't realize she'd feel so hurt by it, but of course she would. I never should have gone, so I stopped going out to the pub with the guys. I thought it was these Skimpies that were the problem. So when the guys invited me to play golf, I thought it'd be no big deal. It was completely innocent. Wrong. She was livid at me again. "You don't even like golf," she cried out. "I just wanted to see my mates," I said carefully. "So you'd rather spend time with them than me?" Babe. I was shocked seeing this insecure side of her I'd never seen before, and definitely a little off-put. Was she being serious? "I am allowed to see my mates, right?" I said it slowly, hoping it'd make her understand how ridiculous she was being. And it did. She sighed, her anger dissipating, replaced by the sort of sadness that reminded me of a kicked puppy. It made my stomach clench in guilt. "I'm sorry. I just missed you," she said. After that, She stopped being livid whenever I went out without her. Instead, she punished me quietly. If I came home from playing pool at a mate's house, she'd barely look at me, barely speak. I'd feel sick with guilt even though I knew I'd done nothing wrong. The breaking point was lunch with my mom. I got home, and she gave me the exact same attitude she always did, acting all cold and distant and miserable, which in turn made me miserable. I'd had enough. I was sick of it. Are you serious, Lily? You're seriously going to make me feel bad about seeing my own mother? The woman who gave birth to me? I'm sorry, she said, tears in her eyes. I just get jealous. Of my mom? That's insane. She stepped closer. Well, maybe I just want you all to myself. Is that really so bad? She murmured softly. For a moment, I was in a trance, forgetting why I was mad in the first place as she stared up at me from under her lashes, her soft lips pressed into a little pout. I knew if she touched me, I'd cave. So I stepped back. I don't think I can do this anymore, I said quietly, refusing to meet her eyes. If I did, I wouldn't be able to say it. I think we need a break. A break? She scoffed. Or a breakup? I didn't answer. Let me make the decision for you, she said. Good luck finding anyone else who understands you like I do. She packed her things and left. I stayed silent, even though one word from me would have stopped her, even though I wanted to stop her. This was for the best, for me and for her. She was too attached. It wasn't healthy for either of us. The weekend was hell. I'd sit in front of my console, staring at the loading screen, remembering her fingers in my hair, her constant touch, her steady, comforting presence. And then the house would feel unbearably empty. When I went back to work, everyone could tell I was in a foul mood. At the time, I didn't notice anything strange about that day. Looking back now, I don't know how I missed it. Everything all right, mate? You and your missus have a fight? Greg, my older manager, asked. He was a good bloke. Always had been. I fucked it all up. I mumbled without thinking. It was the only sentence my brain seemed capable of forming. Oh, you're both doing well then. That's great, mate. Must just be a bit hungover, eh? Greg said with a wink. I frowned at him, but I was too wrapped up in my own head to notice how little sense his response made. It wasn't until the next shift that I really started paying attention. Jerry and the boys are meeting at the pub later. Joining us, Harry? Lachlan asked. I blinked. My first instinct was to say no, that I wasn't in the mood. Then I realized there was nothing stopping me anymore. No one waiting at home. And a pint with the boys sounded better than going back to an empty apartment, where everything reminded me of her. Yeah, sure, I said. Ah, bummer. The missus still has a problem with those skimpies, does she? You should really tell her they've got nothing on her and her banging body. Lachlan chuckled. Don't talk about her like that, I snapped. Then I frowned, the words catching up to me. I said I'll come. We broke up. Didn't Greg tell you? Still don't get what she's doing with a guy like you. You're what, a 4? Nah, like a 3.5. Lily is a solid 10. I stared at him, annoyed as hell, but more confused than anything. Why wasn't he listening? We broke up, I said slowly. Honestly, I get why you don't hang out with the lads anymore. If I had a woman like that waiting for me in my bed, you boys would never see me again. Lachlan laughed. I just looked at him, wondering if he was deliberately fucking with me, and briefly imagining my fist connecting with his acne-scarred face. Just shut the hell up, I said. Tell her hi from me later on, he smirked. Tell her I could show her what a real man is like. I was seconds away from punching him when Greg called us over. That night, I joined the lads at the bar. I still caught myself averting my eyes from the skimpy, even though I had no reason to anymore. It felt wrong, like muscle memory I couldn't shake. And irritatingly, Lachlan was right. No one compared to Lily. The boys looked genuinely shocked when they saw me. "What are you doing here, mate? Isn't you and your missus' anniversary today?" Greg asked. It was 1 year exactly, but we weren't together anymore, and I was past exhausted with this. "Guys, we broke up. Are you messing with me or something? It isn't funny. It's kind of fucked up, actually." "You just left her at the house? That's low, bro. Who would leave a girl like that at home?" "We broke up. It was pointless. They were purposefully ignoring me, and I couldn't understand why. For the next half hour, they kept shooting me weird, dirty looks, judgmental ones. Lachlan just smirked, like this meant it was finally his chance with Lily. But Lily wasn't here. Why did they think she was still around? What the hell was wrong with them? "Your pale ale?" the waitress said, setting a beer in front of me. I ordered a Guinness, I frowned. Normally, I'd just accept it. I hated making a fuss, but between the boys and the constant misunderstanding, something in me snapped. "Yes, this is your pale ale," she said slowly, like I was stupid. "I know, but I ordered a Guinness." "Sir, this is a pale ale," she said again, irritation creeping into her voice. "I know." I was seething. Why did she look annoyed? "I ordered a Guinness." "I already told you, this is your pale ale," she snapped, crossing her arms before storming off. I stared after her, completely disoriented. "What the hell is her problem?" I asked. No one answered. I turned back to the boys, searching their faces for anything that backed me up, but they were all glaring at me. "What's the matter with you?" Greg demanded. "Have you gone mad?" My chest tightened. Was I going mad? Or had everyone else? "I'm sorry," I said instead. "I've been a mess since Lily left me, all right?" "You didn't even buy her roses?" Greg's eyebrow shot up. "On your anniversary? Go back home to your missus, mate. Go make things right." What the hell? I stood up, my heart pounding, and left the bar. My thoughts were spiraling. What is going on? At home, I called my mom. I needed to be grounded. I needed something familiar. Her voice had always been able to pull me back when everything else felt wrong. "Hey, Mom, I really need someone to talk to," I said. "I'm good, honey. What about yourself?" she replied. The answer immediately put me on edge. It didn't match what I just said at all. Still, I told myself she hadn't heard me properly. Mom's hearing wasn't always the best. Not great, honestly. Lily and I broke up a few days ago. My throat tightened as I said it. Tears stung my eyes. The first time I felt close to crying since she left. Talking to my mom always did that. Like I could finally let my guard down. Did she like the flowers? What flowers did you get her? I hope you cooked her a good dinner too. You've got a good one there, Harry, Mom said cheerfully. My body went cold. No, there was no way she was ignoring me too. My mom wouldn't do that. She'd never be that cruel. I tried again, slower this time. "Mom, we broke up. Lily and I broke up." "That's wonderful. I'm so happy you found such a beautiful relationship. You better put a ring on it soon," she laughed. I hurled my phone across the room. My chest rose and fell as I paced. Why didn't anyone understand what I was saying? Lily's voice echoed in my head. "Good luck finding anyone else who understands you like I do." My thoughts raced. It was ridiculous, impossible, but I couldn't shake the feeling that this was somehow her doing. Had she told the boys to mess with me? To make me feel crazy as some kind of punishment? I was sure most of them would do anything if she smiled at them. But my mom too? That didn't make sense. Needing answers, I rushed back to my phone, relieved to see it hadn't cracked. The call was still connected. Harry, are you there? Yeah, I've got to go, Mom. Love you, I said. Yes, I am looking forward to lunch next week, she replied pleasantly. Even that didn't line up with what I'd said. I ended the call with a shaky breath and dialed Lily's number, only hesitating for a moment. She picked up on the first ring, just like she always used to. Lily had always been within reach, always there when I needed her. Harry? Her voice was soft, sad. My chest tightened instantly. I had missed her voice more than I wanted to admit. I forced myself to stay focused. Did you tell everyone to mess with me? Mess with you, she repeated. Relief flooded through me so sharply it almost made me dizzy. For the first time in days, someone had responded in a way that actually made sense. She wasn't ignoring me. She wasn't twisting my words. She was listening. She was understanding me. Harry, what are you talking about? I hesitated, suddenly aware of how insane I sounded. Still, I couldn't let it go. It's just, everyone is ignoring me. They're not listening to a thing I'm saying. They're making me feel crazy. And I remember the last thing you said to me was, good luck finding anyone else who understands me like I do. She went quiet. The silence stretched unbearably. My heart hammered in my chest. I said that because I was hurt, she said finally, her voice low. Guilt stabbed straight through me. I'd never wanted to hurt her. That had never been my intention. What do you mean everyone is ignoring you? She asked. She sounded genuinely confused, concerned even. I dragged a hand down my face. It's like they're pranking me. I'll say one thing and they'll respond with something that makes no sense. I can't get through to anyone. Saying it out loud only made it feel worse, unreal, like I was describing someone else's breakdown. I understand, she said. My head snapped up. You do? Yeah. Since coming back to live with my parents, seeing my friends again, I don't know. It's like no one's on the same wavelength as me. I can't connect with anyone either, Harry, she said quietly. Not since you. My chest ached. That wasn't what I meant. Was it? I miss you. The words tumbled from my mouth before I could stop them. They felt right to say. I did miss her. I miss you too, but you're right. This is for the best. When I moved out there, all I had was you. I guess I got pretty attached. It was hard to make friends. I was jealous you had so many people. And all I had was you. She sighed, and the sound twisted something deep in me. I remembered those moments clearly now. Her jealousy, her insecurity. I'd always brushed it off. But I'd lived in this town my whole life. She'd left everything behind for me. Family, friends, her entire support system. Of course she'd clung to me. Why had that ever felt like a problem? Why hadn't I just brought her along more, instead of insisting on doing things my own? The more I thought about it, the less sense our breakup made. The unease I'd felt around her dissolved, replaced by regret so sharp it made my chest hurt. I want you back, Lily. I'm so sorry for neglecting your feelings. I was a shit boyfriend, I said. I want you back too. Hope surged through me, but I think we need a little more space. It's nice being around family and friends again. I'm remembering who I was before you. Something inside me cracked. I didn't want to remember who she was before me. I didn't want her to be okay without me. I wasn't okay without her. Give it another week. Then I'll come visit and see if we still have something, she suggested. The thought of another week without her made my chest ache, but I swallowed it down. Okay. That whole week, the only thing keeping me sane was knowing I'd see her again soon. The insanity never stopped. People continued misunderstanding every word I said. Everyone still acted like Lily and I were together, like nothing was wrong. I'd order a chicken parm at a restaurant and get spaghetti instead. And then, finally, she came back. I picked her up from the train station and scooped her into my arms. She was just as stunning as ever, smelling amazing despite being in a stuffy train for 7 hours. Her laughter was like music in my ears. I'd never been more ecstatic in my life. We spent most of the evening in bed, and when we were physically exhausted, I rolled over to look at her and said, "I'm never letting you out of my sight again." "Finally, you know how I feel," she smiled, rolling her eyes. She moved back in. At work, I was in a better mood than I'd been in for 2 weeks. Greg noticed. "Someone's happy." "Yeah," I said, accepting that people were going to misinterpret everything I said these days. I didn't care anymore. I had my beautiful girl back. "I got her back," I said with a happy sigh. Greg frowned. "Who? Lily?" His eyes widened. "Did you two break up?" "Yeah, man." I paused. He understood what I said. He actually replied with something that made sense for once. I narrowed my eyes. "So, you were messing with me?" Greg looked at me like I was an idiot. "Messing with you? Man, what are you talking about? All those times I told you we'd broken up, you did hear what I said? Didn't you?" I accused. "Man, He paused, furrowing his brows like he was confused now. "Huh. That's weird." "What?" I scoffed. "You did tell us," he said in a sudden, shocked realization. "You said it to Jerry 5 times in a row. We broke up." That was when I had decided to just mess with them back a few days ago. I'd stared at Jerry with a flat look and repeated it robotically. And he just chuckled and said, "Yeah, I guess the weather is nice today, man." "Weird. I swore you were going on about some other thing," Greg said. "Wait, you said to me you shit your pants." I almost laughed. That was also when I was messing with them. I just looked Greg directly in the eye and said, "I shit myself," to see how far he'd take this weird prank. But he just clapped me on the shoulder and said, "That's great news, man." I stared at Greg, a cold, uncomfortable feeling washing over me at the genuine confusion on his face. "Dude, we thought you were losing your mind. Why did I think it was normal for you to say, 'Let's go golfing'? You hate golfing. You'd never suggest that. What the hell?" He stepped back, looking like he wanted to vomit. "I feel weird, man," he said. "Are you okay?" I asked, genuinely concerned. "Yeah." He furrowed his brows to give me a weird look. Let's get back to work." It stuck with me all afternoon. They had all been genuinely hearing things I wasn't saying. The other guys started understanding me again too. Even they seemed creeped out by something. "It's like some voodoo shit," I heard Jerry mutter to Lachlan. Lachlan almost looked scared when he looked at me now. I didn't let it spoil my mood. I was a little weirded out, sure, but I had my beautiful girl back. Everything felt right again. "How's your day?" Lily asked when I came home. I hugged her immediately and breathed her in. She was like a drug. Her scent, her warmth, my entire body relaxed. Good, but a lot better now. Over the week, the boys invited me out more than usual. They were persistent, but I refused every time. All I wanted was to be with Lily. I canceled plans with Mom. I wanted to spend every minute with her. I even started thinking about quitting my well-paying job for a remote one so I could stay home. Anything to be surrounded by her. Until one day, the boys cornered me at work. They all looked worried, even Lachlan. "Something's happening to you, man," Jerry said. "And it's because of Lily." "What?" I laughed, shaking my head. He stayed serious. "What do you even know about her?" The question hit me like a punch. "What do you mean?" "I mean, like, what does she do? Does she work? Where does her family live? How did you meet?" Greg asked. My mind went blank. I didn't have answers to any of it. But that wasn't the worst part. A strange part of me, something old and buried, screamed that something was wrong. Like a threat hovering just out of sight. "She doesn't work," I said. "Does she?" I wasn't sure. "I make more than enough to support us both," I shrugged. "Besides, she's easy to provide for. And she catches the train to see her family, so obviously they must live in the city." "You don't know where her parents live?" Jerry demanded. "Have you ever even met them?" Of course I had. Had I? My stomach twisted. "When did you pick her up from the train?" Lachlan suddenly asked. I frowned. Why would he ask that? "On Saturday," I said. All their faces drained of color. "Seriously, what is wrong with you guys?" I asked. "The train doesn't run on Saturdays, Harry," Greg said, looking sick again. "So, what are you saying?" I folded my arms. "She's been lying to you. And she's doing something really weird to you. And us. We didn't understand what you were saying for a full week, Harry. Do you know how freaky that is? And now, when we think back on that week, it's like there was an evil presence with us. Something controlling us. Something's wrong with that chick." "Don't talk about her like that," I spat. "How did you meet her, Harry?" Greg repeated. "I don't know," I snapped. They all looked at each other, like I just confirmed something for them. "You need to get away from her. She's some sort of..." Jerry trailed off, like he knew the word he was about to say sounded ridiculous even to him. "Fuck this, I'm leaving early." I turned away from them. "We've never even met her, Harry. I could have sworn we had, but we haven't. Has your mom even met her?" I kept walking because I didn't want to admit the truth. I don't know. I was desperate to get back with her. At home, she opened her arms, and I melted into them. "The guys were saying some weird stuff today." I mumbled into her hair. "Just ignore them, baby. They'll never understand what we have," she hummed. I took a few days off work. The boys blew up my phone, but I told them to leave me alone. One night, I was looking for my hoodie. My favorite hoodie. It was cold, and I needed it. I wondered where it could be when I noticed, for the first time, the room. It was just a normal room at the end of the hallway, but I'd never seen it before in my life. I blinked. How could I not know there was a whole room in my own apartment? I went inside. It was small, a basic spare room with a bed, a desk, a wardrobe, but in the middle of the floor, a triangle of candles was laid out, and in the center of it sat my hoodie. My favorite book, the one I'd been missing for months, and my toothbrush, also missing for weeks. I stared at them in shock, stepping closer. "Don't touch anything. Come back to bed, baby," her voice said behind me. I turned, and even though unease crept in, I couldn't help but smile at her cute, sleepy face. "What is all this?" I asked slowly, in some sort of haze. She shrugged. My eyes flicked back to the bed, and a strange thought hit me. almost funny. Lily, when you left, I began, did you ever actually leave? She chuckled. Of course I hadn't, Harry. I'd never leave you. You'll always be within my reach. I went back to bed, and now, as she sleeps beside me, I'm typing this out on my phone. There's a part of me that knows something is wrong, that I'm under some kind of spell. I can feel the small voice in my head telling me to get out, but it's getting quieter. Maybe the boys are right. Maybe I know they are. But has she really done anything I don't want? She wants me forever. I want her forever. I suppose the only reason I'm writing this at all is because I'm afraid I'll forget I ever felt differently. Because I feel really forgetful these days. And maybe I just want to see what other people think. If a beautiful girl wants me all to herself every day for the rest of my life, is that really so bad? It's what I want, isn't it? My neighbor used to peek at me over her fence when I was little. Her fence is 10 feet tall. Written by Sophie the Toad. I didn't realize my new customer used to be my neighbor until I pulled into her driveway. The street name had sounded vaguely familiar when I first read it. A few landmarks on the drive over had sparked something in me. Nothing solid though, just a prickling sense of recognition I couldn't place. It only clicked when I actually saw my old childhood home sitting right beside my customer's property. I know it's strange that it took me so long, that I hadn't recognized anything when I put the address into Google Maps. But my uncle moved me out of this quiet neighborhood when I was 6. I barely remembered anything about living on this street or in that house. My girlfriend, Ellie, said that wasn't quite normal. Told me gently that it was probably my brain blocking things out on purpose. I sat gripping the steering wheel long after I'd parked, staring at my childhood home. It backed onto a large woodland area, tall trees looming far above the ground. The bungalow itself looked abandoned. Shattered windows, empty bottles scattered across dead yellow grass. Clearly, no one had lived there for a long time. A heavy pressure settled in my chest. For a moment, I considered leaving. But I'd only started my lawn mowing business a few months ago. I needed the money. This woman was only my 3rd customer so far. She hadn't called like the others. She'd emailed instead. Am interested in your service. Every week Sunday work? Question mark, question mark. I replied that Sundays were fine and asked for the address. She sent it, followed by another message. Door left open Sundays. Money on table. Help self to drink. And meal. It struck me as odd that she'd contacted someone who lived an hour away instead of a local business, but she'd promised a generous tip. Still sitting in the van, I tried to remember my old neighbor. Elderly, maybe. The emails felt that way. But when I searched my memory for her face, I came up blank. Just another thing lost to my strange childhood amnesia. Her lawn was wildly overgrown. Knee-high grass, thick and uneven. The house itself was perfectly normal. A neat 2-story place with a front porch. Well kept enough that the state of the yard felt odd, almost like a choice. I hesitated, wondering if I should knock or just start the job. In the end, I got to work. Part of me didn't want to meet her yet. I was delaying it. I couldn't explain why. As I mowed, my gaze kept drifting to the fence separating her property from my old home. It was enormous, easily 10 feet tall. I couldn't believe something like that had been approved in a quiet suburban street. But it wasn't just the size. Every time I looked at it, pressure built behind my eyes. The sensation of a memory forcing its way up while something inside me resisted just as hard. The effort made my head throb. Then, for a split second, I remembered hair. Long, black strands, spilling down the fence from the other side, tangled and thin, draped over the timber, clinging to the wood, hanging there like a ragged curtain. I'd frozen on my cheap plastic tricycle. One of the back wheels was missing, so I had to balance my weight just right to keep it upright. It's strange, the useless little details that scramble back when everything else is lost. The hair shifted, and slowly, above the lip of the fence, a pale forehead rose. There were eyes, white and cloudy. I only saw them for a moment, but I knew immediately who they were peeking down at. Me. Only me. Then there had been a sound behind me. Maybe a voice. Maybe someone calling my name. The eyes vanished. The forehead sank out of sight. The hair slid upward, strand by strand, slithering back over the fence until there was nothing left at all. Cold washed through my body. I tightened my grip on the mower handle and focused on the lines of grass ahead of me. I didn't look at the fence again. Surely it had just been my imagination. Something I'd invented out of boredom. No one could peer over a 10-foot fence unless they were standing on stilts or bouncing on some ridiculous ladder. And even then, why would anyone climb that high just to look at a child playing in their backyard? It was too strange to take seriously, too absurd. And yet an unease bloomed low in my chest and refused to settle. Because that image, hair spilling over the fence, eyes watching, was suddenly one of the clearest memories I had from the house. From that time. Clearer than anything else I could recall in over a decade. I shook my head, forced the image away, and got back to work. An hour later, the lawn looked respectable again. I packed my equipment back into my uncle's van. Then I remembered the money. I knocked on the front door and waited a bit. She did say to let myself in, but it felt wrong to just waltz into a stranger's house. I waited another few minutes before finally reaching for the handle and stepping inside. "Miss Ramona? Are you home?" I called out, remembering her last name from the email address. One of the first things I noticed was the ceiling. It was unusually high. It made the space feel wide and open, almost cavernous. It also made it incredibly cold inside. Goosebumps rose over my arms. Most of the ground floor was open plan, so I spotted the kitchen right away, where a wooden table sat by the counter. There was money laid out neatly on top of it. Beside it, a glass jug filled with what looked like lemonade, ice cubes floating inside, a clean glass, a sandwich on a plate. She'd said to help myself. Still, I hesitated. I felt silly to be cautious, but I hadn't even met her. I picked up the money and nearly choked when I counted it. 4 $50 notes. I only charged $60. She'd mentioned a tip, sure, but this was excessive. What if she was elderly? What if she'd miscounted? I took 100 and left the other 100 on the table, just in case. That was when I heard something upstairs. A wheeze, wet and uneven, like air being dragged through damaged lungs. After that, 2 sharp creaks snapped through the house in quick succession. Floorboards protesting under sudden weight. My body went rigid. Someone was definitely home. I stared at the staircase. "Hello?" My voice rang out too loud in the open space. Miss Ramona? No answer. I edged closer to the stairs despite myself, my heart beginning to pound. The noises replayed in my head. What had made them? Had she fallen? Was she hurt? If she was elderly, I told myself, I should check. That was the decent thing to do. But another part of me was screaming to leave. The feeling was sudden and absolute, like stepping into a place you were never meant to enter, like bait. After a moment, I turned back to the table. I picked up the sandwich so I wouldn't seem rude, my hands clumsy and shaking, and then I got out. When I drove home, I sat in the van for a long time with the engine off. The sandwich rested on the passenger seat. Eventually, I opened the bread. Inside was butter and raw red meat. I swallowed, then noticed something else threaded through it. I pinched it between my fingers and pulled. A single hair slid free. Dark. Absurdly long. I told my girlfriend what happened, but left out the part about my strange memory. Ellie laughed. You're scared of a little old granny? I don't know if she's a granny, I said. I've never met this woman. She could be a man for all I know. Are you sure? You said she was your old neighbor, she said. Her eyes soft but insistent. That gentle look she always got when she was trying to probe something about my childhood. Are you sure you don't remember anything? That long black hair entered my mind again. At that moment, I remembered something else. I remembered a single strand had caught in the fence, drifting in the breeze until it detached and floated down to my 6-year-old self. I remembered plucking it from the air and then playing with it carefully so it wouldn't snap. I had wrapped it around my arm, amazed I could coil almost the entire length up my little forearm, like linen around an Egyptian mummy. I shook my head at Ellie's question and told her about the inedible sandwich instead. Ellie laughed again, shaking her head. The poor woman probably has dementia. A week later, I went back. I didn't want to, but Ellie had made me realize I was being ridiculous, and the money mattered. If we ever wanted to move out of my uncle's house, we needed it. My stomach churned the whole drive. Before I even started the mower, my eyes went to the fence again. I remembered long, curling fingers reaching over the top, and once more, I remembered seeing half a face peering down at me, just eyes and a forehead visible above the timber, watching. I reluctantly went inside to collect my payment. This time, she'd left $300 on the table. Beside it, a note, the handwriting thin and spidery. Take all money. Why no drink? My gaze drifted to the jug of lemonade. I filled a glass, intending to pour half of it down the sink to make it look like I had had some. Instead, for some reason I couldn't explain, I took a small sip. It was cold, sweet, good. After that, the memories returned, stronger than ever. I had a dream that night, a dream about food being thrown over an enormous fence. Sometimes it was a roast chicken, still warm inside a plastic bag, juices sloshing against the sides. Other times it was a whole chicken, raw, feathers still clinging to pale skin. Sometimes it was fresh fruit in a cracked plastic container. Other times it was rotting apples and a thick slab of heavy red meat. I remembered the hunger. I remembered setting up a blanket over the bushes beside the fence, a small hidden nest where I could crouch and store what I was given. I remembered eating like an animal, devouring whatever was edible before anyone could find me. I remembered my scalp itching constantly, lice, multiplying, biting, crawling, with no one bothering to stop them. A whole kingdom of parasites living freely in my hair. Then I remembered the hand. It slipped through the narrow gap between the fence and the bushes where I sat with my back pressed against the timber, rustling the spindly branches. The hand was enormous but gentle. One long finger brushed the tangled hair out of my face. The itching faded. I stared up and saw nothing but the endless length of a thin gray arm disappearing over the fence. I remembered wrapping my small hands around that enormous finger and holding tight, crying into it. Then I remembered an angry voice coming from somewhere. The finger wriggled gently until I released it, and then the hand vanished. The arm withdrew. When I looked back up, only a faint wisp of dark hair was visible above the fence line. Someone tore the blanket away from my hiding place. They yelled, screamed in disgust. I was sitting on a hoard of food. A lot of it was rotting. There were flies. There were maggots. Hands grabbed my arm and dragged me out of the bushes and away from the massive fence so hard I thought the bone would snap. "Stop," I screamed. The third time I went back to mow Ramona's lawn, I did not hesitate. Something had begun to clarify itself inside of me, like an image slowly coming into focus. And I knew I needed to speak with her. Ramona. Finally. I didn't know if the memories were wholly real, but pieces were fitting together now, clicking into place with a quiet inevitability. I felt closer to the truth than I ever had before, and instead of making my head ache, it planted something determined inside of me, something that refused to be quiet any longer. I thought maybe my neighbor had been a sweet old granny who babysat me sometimes. Maybe she fed me. Maybe she took care of me. Maybe she read me stories. Maybe this was the only way my memories were able to return, disguised as something else, something not quite real, but threaded through the truth. As I started the lawnmower this time, I didn't look away from the fence. I remembered the humming, a low, steady hum, as I lay hidden in the bushes beside the fence. The yelling in the house always softened when I listened to her hums. I remember being lifted so high I could see over the roof of my house. I remembered being placed on a sturdy tree branch in the forest and being given a dead fox. I remembered biting into the furry flesh, feeling warm blood dribble down my cheeks. I remembered sitting in a cocoon of warmth, high above the ground, watching the stars blink into existence. I remembered running to my hiding place between the fence and the bushes, shaking, starving, sick with fear. I remembered someone chasing me. "Henry, you get back here right now, you little shit," she screamed. She caught my arm and wrenched me around. "Mommy, stop," I sobbed. "Don't hurt me again." I remembered my mother freezing, and I remembered something brushing the back of my neck, light and familiar, like long strands of hair. My mother gasped, staring at something above us, terror carved into her face. I looked up. Then the fingers came. They wrapped around my mother's body and lifted her. Up, up, up. She was screaming as she went, so I called out, "It's okay, Mommy. She's just taking you to see the stars." There was a deafening crunch, and her screaming stopped. I saw something flying across the sky like a meteor, disappearing into the forest. Hands closed around me. They were so warm when they lifted me, gentle, careful, cocooning me as I shook and clung to the heat. I rose high enough to see over the roof of my house, just like all those other times. I finally remembered seeing her face. The image was clear now, unblurred, impossible to look away from. She was pale and gaunt, her lips stretched too wide across her skull. But her eyes, they were dark, but they were warm. Did Mommy like seeing the stars? I asked her. She hummed. My hand shook. I didn't turn the lawnmower off. I walked toward her house on numb legs, the sound of the engine fading to something distant, barely there. The front door was open, as it always was. I climbed the staircase slowly. A low groan echoed from above, stretching and deepening as I went. The upper floor was completely open plan, wide and sloping like an expansive attic, and laid out across it was a very tall woman. Her skin was a shade close to gray. Her face had the weathered features of someone much older than me. Her limbs were long and spindly. She lay on her side on a soft floor mat that covered nearly every inch of the space, her body folded carefully, purposefully, as if she had made herself smaller for me. Her eyes found mine the moment I stepped inside. I dropped to my knees and sobbed before I could stop myself. Terror and grief and everything I had buried for so long rushed through me all at once, crushing and merciless. Fingers reached out, impossibly large, wrapping around me and drawing me gently toward her. I was pulled into warmth, deep and steady, and my shivering slowly began to ease. You killed her, I sobbed. You killed her, didn't you? She hummed softly. Why? Why would you do that? I said, the words breaking apart as they left me. She brushed my hair back. My cries thinned into small, broken whimpers. Why didn't she care about me? I whispered. Why did she let me starve? Why did she hurt me? I was just a little kid. Her warmth held. Her breathing stayed slow and even. I fell asleep. When I woke up, I was in bed. Across from me, seated in an armchair, was a little old lady. Her eyes were distant, as if part of her had wandered somewhere far away and hadn't yet found its way back. Still, they stayed on me, steady, impatient. We were still upstairs. The massive mat lay stretched across the floor, unchanged. The bed had been tucked into a small corner of the room, like it had been put there for me. Who are you? I asked. What was that thing? She didn't answer. Instead, her gaze drifted to something beside me. I followed it and saw a folded note resting on the mattress. I picked it up and, with shaking hands, I cursed with sighs and hunger. But I protect. Sweet little boy. Cold and hungry. I carry you to the stars, where she not reach. Lost myself when I took her. But she not hurt you anymore. Forgive me. Please. When I drove home, I finally asked my uncle to tell me the truth. I'd always known something horrible happened to my mother, but there were details surrounding the event that, deep down, I think I never wanted to learn. But I felt stronger now. I was ready. He showed me the pictures first. They were of me as a little boy. My hair was long and scraggly. I wore dirty clothes that were torn at the seams. My body was mapped with bruises and cuts and burn marks. There wasn't much to know in the end, except the fact that my mother was a monster. And when she was found in the woods one day, half eaten, a case that would quickly be declared as an animal attack. People called it karma after they learned what she did to me. I continued to visit Ramona. I brushed her hair and cared for her when she was a little old granny. I laid down and listened to her hums when she was something else. I wrote all this down because, unlike my mother, Ramona deserves to be remembered. I could never tell anyone about her. They would have hurt her or killed her, but I needed someone to know. Ramona may have been a beast, but it wasn't her fault. Even when she lost control, it all came down to an instinct to protect. When she was dying, I fell asleep holding her large hand. And when I woke up, there was nothing. She was gone. Even though she doesn't live there anymore, even though the house is no longer occupied, I still go back to mow her lawn. And sometimes, when the lawn is done, I linger until the night swallows the sky. When I focus on the constellations, it almost feels like I'm rising, slowly, above the roof of the house. I'm in jail for insurance fraud. Written by Saturdead. I'm Ridgy. I'm in jail for insurance fraud. I can't tell you much about it, but a couple of things are relevant. For one, I never hurt anyone. That's not me. Second, I was damn good at it. If it hadn't been for someone stabbing me in the back, I'd be living the high life right now. Instead, I'm here, still in jail. But yeah, there's a bit more to it. I've tried telling this story a couple of times, but there aren't many folks around that care to listen. I'll just throw this out there. Maybe you'll learn something. Maybe you know something. I got here a couple of years ago. It was pretty uneventful. All of a sudden, I'm standing there with a handful of necessities next to a guy named Marco, being told we're living together. I was so scared, I didn't know what to do. I stood there for about half an hour before Marco turned around and took a nap. I don't think he was tired, but it was too awkward to tell me straight up that he wasn't going to hurt me. I wasn't worth the hassle. Jail isn't as dramatic as you might think. Don't cross any lines, and you don't expect any favors. And you've done most of the work. You get used to the rhythm of things pretty quickly. You keep your head down, do what you're told, and don't go asking too many questions. If a CO tells you to go back to your cell, you go back. They're gonna be around just as long as you. Don't make enemies with them. And I mean, yeah, I saw some things. It wasn't my business. Some people shuffled around duct tape packages or flashed a blade when the guards weren't looking. Most of it was for show. I try not to make trouble, but it's hard to be off the radar. You start testing boundaries. You get confident, you know? I didn't want to add years to my sentence, but I figured that if I could make my stay a little easier, that wouldn't hurt. For example, there was one CO who was always wearing gloves. We called him Pot, as in Potbelly. I managed to trick him into coating his fingers in peanut butter without him noticing. And he went to input a 4-digit code to get in one of the supply closets. Since his fingers were sticky, I could check which buttons got stuck. Then it was just a numbers game. I handed that information off to Marco and some of his guys for half a box of chocolate bars from the commissary. Harmless. Well, the guards didn't think so. No one got hurt, but there was an inquiry as to how the inmates managed to get unsupervised access to the supply closet. Some folks stole some stuff. There was this one guy who took drain cleaner, and he was planning to do something nasty with it. The guards caught on before he did it. That made them ask questions. And while it didn't incriminate me directly, it put me on Pot's radar. He didn't have any evidence, but he didn't need any. He saw right through me, and he stopped wearing his gloves all the time. For a couple of weeks, that was all there was to it. A couple of nasty looks when we crossed paths in the hallway. I kind of forgot about it, and I promised myself I wouldn't roll the dice like that again. Then one day, during lunch, Pot comes up to me. I thought he was gonna smack me across the face, but instead he patted me on the shoulder. "Thanks for the bench thing," he smiled. I looked at him and raised an eyebrow. I had no idea what he was talking about. Then he wandered off. Marco was sitting across from me, enjoying some beans and tomato sauce. I could see something in his eyes darken as he put down his spoon. "Why did he say that?" he asked. "No idea." "What bench thing?" What did you... Marco shook his head, then frowned. He pointed a finger at me. Did you say something about the hiding spot? What hiding spot? There's a... by the bench, back of the yard. Don't tell me you don't know. I didn't know, and I tried to tell him, but he was already rattled. See, there was this hiding spot out in the yard. It was a sort of dead drop that some of the guys used to move stuff. It was a hollowed out spot on the bottom of a bench in the yard, no bigger than a fist. I'd never heard about it, but all of a sudden, people were looking my way. Some were asking questions, and a couple hours later, I realized why. The guards had filled a hole in the bench and taken something. Something that was a big enough deal to get one of the guys carried off to solitary. And his crew was mad enough not to hide their weapons anymore. And soon enough, a lot of them were looking my way. That's why Pot had said what he did. He couldn't get to me directly, so he went the other way. His boss must have chewed him out bad. I was turned into a sort of pariah overnight. Marco stopped talking to me, and people distanced themselves. Didn't matter what I said. I already had the target on my back. You can't talk your way out of that. Talking to the guards is just digging your grave deeper and faster. You gotta keep to yourself, be smart, and hope it goes away. I tried a couple of things. I joined a sort of study group to get some name recognition. Most folks stick to themselves, but just showing your face enough can make them hesitant to put a fist through it. That, or maybe I could get my foot in the door of a proper crew. I could use the protection. Problem was, I was already blacklisted. It wasn't worth it for any one group to single-handedly break the peace. I was no one to them. Why would they care? The final wake-up call came one night just before lockdown. Marco wasn't back yet. I was in my top bunk, reading a cheap crime thriller. All of a sudden, there was a guy in the doorway, leaning against the frame. There are two more guys behind him. He's smiling, but there's no joy in it. It's empty. Which side's your favorite? He asked. Which what? Which side's your favorite? You a lefty or righty? I held my book with my right hand. Before I could answer, he nodded. Righty, well, then I'm gonna do you a favor. I didn't say anything. I just shuffled back a little. We don't want you running off, so we're cutting up a lung. I figured you could pick which side to keep, yeah? I didn't say a thing. Don't ask questions. Keep your head down. Anything I did would just make it worse. We'll poke out your left one. You get to keep the right. I'm good like that. He was about to take a step through the door when someone mumbled something. That joyless smile looked away, then back at me. See you soon. He tapped the door and walked off. I had to do something. I couldn't sit around and wait to get stabbed to death, so I started exploring some options. I thought maybe I could get transferred, but not on short notice. I could get put in solitary, but that was just a countdown until they got another shot at stabbing me. I considered snitching, but that would make more enemies. They'd have to put me with the S-word criminals. I don't want to say Marco and I were friends, but we talk sometimes. I didn't ask him for any advice, but he had some to give either way. Once, as I drifted off to sleep, I heard him mumble, "You ought to look for Haywood." Who's Haywood? He got out. What do you mean? He got out, man. He's gone. How'd he do it? No one knows. Maybe you can figure it out. A prison break wasn't on my list, but I didn't know what else to do. It wasn't so much about getting out as it was about making it another day. I might not even do it, but having it in my back pocket could turn out to be an actual lifesaver. I didn't have a lot of friends in there, but there were a couple of folks I could drop a name to without getting angry looks. I asked around about Haywood, and most folks had no idea who I was talking about. For a while, I thought Marco was messing with me. There was this old guy running the kitchen who knew everybody, and he just waved me off. Maybe he didn't know Haywood. Or maybe he didn't want to say. I figured out a couple of things. Haywood used to have a cell on the top floor of the D block, for example. He was from South Dakota and had been in for murder. The details were sketchy, but most folks figured he died. Others weren't so sure. And the rumor that it got out wasn't just a figment of Marco's imagination. But I wasn't getting anywhere, and I could see the guy with the empty smile roaming the hallways. Now that I knew he was coming, I stuck to the public areas. It wouldn't save me forever, and I could see him and his crew circling me like sharks. But it bought me some time. But man, I don't know what's worse. Waiting for pain or getting it. I remember sitting down in a corner, plucking at my hair. It's this thing I do when I'm stressed, leaving me with a bald spot next to my ear. It was bad. I'd lost weight, and I couldn't stop doing that leg shaking thing. I kept trying to get a spot in the corners to keep my back clear. It worked most of the time, but every now and then, they'd sneak up on me and psych me out. That is, until one of the old guys stopped at my table. He had this shoulder-length gray hair and a scruffy beard that stood out to the sides. He had these tired green eyes that seemed to look straight through me. He sat down across from me, crossed his arms, and waited. We just sat there for a while. I was on the edge and couldn't stand the silence, so I was the first to speak. "What you want?" "You've been asking about me," he said. "Here I am." "Asking about who?" "Haywood," he said. "I'm Haywood. I'm in jail for murder." "You're Haywood?" "Yeah." I threw my hands up in surrender. For someone who got out, he sure as hell was very much still in jail. "They said you got out." "Yeah," he nodded. "About 6 years ago. Don't look like it from here." "I came back." I raised an eyebrow at him, but he didn't budge. "I killed a woman," he said. "I told you. I'm a murderer. Murderers ought to be in jail." "Look, I don't care what you did. Do you know how to get out?" "Yeah, but you don't want that. You did something bad, so you should be in jail too." I tried to explain my problem. A misunderstanding with the CO, a couple of guys getting the wrong idea at the wrong time. I don't think Haywood cared for the details, but he could see I was stressed about it. He was looking at my bald spot and my hand kept drifting to it. Maybe he didn't know whether or not I deserved this, but he knew one thing for sure. I was in trouble. That was easy enough to get me some sympathy. "It's not easy," he explained. "It's gonna cost a lot, might even cost your life. You prepared to risk it just for a shot at getting out?" "I don't know," I admitted, "but I need the option. Things could get bad." "This isn't a half-assed walk in the park kind of deal," Haywood explained. "You do this, there ain't no going back." "You did though. You went back." "It's not like that," he said, shaking his head. "If you want to do this, you gotta commit." I sighed and leaned back to my rickety plastic chair. Haywood kept his eyes locked to mine. "All right," I said. "What you want for it?" "If you get out, you'll deliver something for me. Deal?" "Deal." We shook on it. We decided we'd meet up for dinner and talk about details. We didn't say a place, but he promised he'd find me either way. When Haywood met up with me, I'd forgotten all about him. He pulled me aside and took me back to his cell in D block. He didn't have a cellmate, and the whole place was decorated like a small apartment. It barely even looked like a cell. He had his own covers, a couple of paintings, a small bookshelf, way more than I'd seen anyone being allowed to bring in. "You friends with the warden?" I asked. "They don't ask a lot of questions," he said. "I think they forgot I'm here." He had this snow globe right next to his bed with a big plastic hand giving me the finger. It was signed with a silver pen. Maybe Kid Rock? "You ever been to Hilltop?" Haywood asked. "It's this small town in the middle of fucking nowhere. Shit town, shit people, but way off the radar." I shook my head. "I was there a lot," he continued. "Not sure why. Maybe family." "You're not sure you got family?" He didn't answer. Haywood brought out a handful of notes from his bookshelf. A couple of sketches, portraits, some pictures, half a church, a bouquet of blue sunflowers, a black and white photo of a river. Finally, there was a piece of paper with a square drawn with charcoal. He handed it to me. "Hold this." He tapped the picture of the river on the wall. Right next to it, the sketch of the sunflowers. One by one, he put it all on the wall, while I stood there holding that paper with the black square. Haywood gave me a gentle push, asking me to step back. There was a chair at the back of his cell with a straight view of all the items he'd put up. "This is all one place," he said. "Not too far from Hilltop. This is all impressions of that place and what it's like. You get it?" "You making a fucking mood board?" "No, I'm teaching you, you fucking ingrate. You get it or not?" "I get it," I sighed. "It's a mood board." "You can call it a fucking Christmas tree for all I care. Now, sit here and do one thing. Look at the square. Then look at the wall. Try to imagine what it looks like. Not just from the front, but all angles. Do this over and over and over." "What's the point?" "Are you going to ask questions, or are you going to do it?" I rolled my eyes. Haywood waved me off. "I'm getting a coffee," he said. "I'll be back in an hour." "You going to leave me here for an hour?" "No one's going to find you here. Now get to it." I tried to do as he told me. I looked down at the square, then back up at the pictures. I tried to imagine what that place was like. I could imagine swaying trees, a rushing river, and those sunflowers dancing in the wind. But I couldn't get past the square. It didn't fit the picture. Every time I looked back at it, I couldn't help but frown. For some reason, it bothered me. Time and time again, I found my hand drifting up to the side of my head, picking at the hairs by my ear. It wasn't just a drawing. It was a sensation. Like I was feeling something through whoever drew it. Like I had a hand on the pen. I could feel something cold running through their hands, all the way into mine. I could tell they'd been worried, scared even. I imagined them looking up, and where there ought to be something else, it was just black. The kind of black that not even charcoal can paint. After a while, I wasn't looking up at the wall anymore. I was just staring at that black square, imagining it as this void eating away at the light in my eyes. Then someone snapped their fingers at me. I hadn't even noticed Haywood coming back. "It's been 2 hours," he said. "You all right?" "What the hell is this?" "It's this thing. If you follow the river and look in the right spot, you can see it." "But what is it?" "Fuck if I know, but I know it's there. You don't forget that kind of thing." He tapped the paper. "I drew that," he continued. "I wanted to get it out of my head for a bit, but I don't know. Now it just has more places to live." "And you don't know what it is?" "Never figured that out." He picked the paper from my hand and stuffed it away in his notes. For some reason, I felt relieved. He let out a sigh of relief. "If you want to get out, you're going to need to learn more about it. And you got to be ready to move." He had a couple of blank papers that he rolled up for me. Then he handed me some charcoal. Draw some squares on your own. Don't think about it too much. Do it at night, when you're tired, when you can barely keep your eyes open. That's when you need to think. I took the papers and the charcoal. I barely understood what he was saying, but the way he said it made me keep my mouth shut. He wasn't joking. It instilled this sort of confidence in me that maybe this would work. Somehow. You can't get a snow globe from commissary, after all. Coming back to my cell, I spent some time with those papers, drawing the same square over and over. After a while, I sort of imagined it from different angles. The color and shape were the same, but it was like I could picture it. Not like a physical thing, but like a hole in the world. Like the sky itself had a dead pixel. I ended up drawing it at least a dozen times, on both sides of the papers. Then I draw it again, covering the first image. And when the lights got cut for the night, I was still drawing in the dark. I didn't need to see the paper to know it was there. And the more I drew it, the clearer it got. Even in the dark of night, I could see the black. I could smell the summer wind in the bushes. I could hear the rustle of leaves and the running water bubbling down the river. It's like I was there, looking up at this immense thing. I don't remember falling asleep. It wasn't like usual sleep. I was already dreaming before my eyes were closed. I woke up with my hands covered in charcoal. The papers were all over the floor. I didn't notice it at first, but Marco was already gone. Turns out, I'd missed roll call. But how was that possible? How could I miss it without being dragged out of bed? Hell, I'd seen people get stuck in solitary for less. I'd missed breakfast. It was closer to lunchtime. Most folks were out in the yard, leaving the block almost empty. I didn't get many steps out of my cell before a CO spotted me and escorted me outside, stopping only to let me wash my hands. The moment I got to the yard, I could tell something was up. People were stepping away from me, and the guy with the empty smile wouldn't look away. He tapped the left side of his chest with his pinky finger and licked his lips, nodding at me. Another guy tapped his wrist as if showing a wristwatch that wasn't there. The message was clear. Time was up. As we left the yard, a hand grabbed my arm and pulled me aside. My first instinct was to fight, but a quick hush shut me up. I hadn't even noticed Haywood walking up to me, but there he was. "Did it work?" he asked. "Did you see it?" "I don't know what the hell I saw." "Close enough." He took me down the hallway, right past the CO. The guy didn't even look our way. For some reason, people just didn't pay attention to Haywood. It's like he wasn't really there in a way. We made it all the way back to his cell, where he handed me a small canvas bag of charcoal. "I thought we had more time, but I saw those guys looking your way," he said. "We're doing this now." He tapped his hand on the wall. "Draw it," he continued. "Draw it over and don't stop until you run out of black." "And then what?" "Then you can get out." He picked something up from under his pillow. A yellowed envelope, stamped and addressed but never sent. My part of the deal. "You get out, you deliver that, then we're square." "How is this gonna get me out?" I asked. "You want me to explain it, or do you want to do it?" There was no discussion. Haywood turned to leave, but stopped in the doorway. He unrolled a receipt from his pocket and jotted something down. He put it in the letter and handed it to me. I got to work. I spent all day drawing the wall a solid black. It wasn't just about the color, it was also about the texture. I used my hands to smooth out the lines, trying to make it all blend into a single solid. I couldn't wrap my head around it, but the way I imagined it, it wasn't just about making a black wall. It was a lack of color. I wasn't painting something black as much as I was removing light. but I couldn't figure out what it was supposed to be. It was easier to figure out what it wasn't. Not a place, not a real thing, not a vision. It was something, and it had a shape. And it was also nothing. Something impossible, resting by a river in the middle of nowhere. I got really into it. Hours passed and no one came looking for me. And finally, after staring myself blind at the same dark space, I felt something. I could push it. Not with force, but by picturing it further away. Like I was trying to reach where it really was. I could see the cell stretch and extend, as if shaping into a tunnel, reaching. It was unsettling. My stomach kept turning, like I was being pushed back by a great force. I bent over and hurled. I almost pissed myself right then and there. And when I looked up, it was just a messy wall. When I left Haywood's cell, I had a raging migraine. I could barely stand. I had to try and find him, but my eyes kept getting crossed and I would get my feet mixed up. I ended up falling over and almost tumbling down the catwalk. Luckily, someone lent me a shoulder to lean on. They sat me down on a chair, balancing me against the wall, and the friendly shoulder moved up to look me in the eye. The man with the empty smile, with a shiv on full display. "Man, what the fuck did you get into?" he asked. "You dying to see the nurse already?" I tried to tell him I wasn't feeling well. My eyes kept getting crossed and I felt like the space in the room was extending. It's like the world kept tipping over. And I was holding on for dear life. "We'll get you to the nurse," he grinned. "You just need a good reason. A real good reason." And with that, they dragged me off. I think I was in the showers. There was a cold floor and ceramic tiles. The fluorescent lights burned like a phosphor, making the shadows sharper, longer, and darker. In a way, I was thankful to be sitting down. It was easier to keep my balance, to not fall, whatever that meant. The man came back with a sharpened toothbrush. Two of his guys waited by the door, making small talk with someone just outside. This was going to be a one-man job, and I was the recipient. I bet my left testicle they were talking to Potbelly. "Can't believe they got you to snitch," the smiling man said. "This place is going to be my home for the next 8 years. I want it clean, you see. And if you want to keep it clean, we can't have no fucking rats running around, yeah?" I wanted to talk, to explain myself somehow, but all I could do was roll my eyes, trying to find an angle where the light didn't burn my brain. As he gently placed the sharpened end of the toothbrush against my ribcage, I felt something strange. I gave up. I grabbed onto the man for stability, ignoring what he was about to do. He was my support. Then I lost my balance. Despite leaning against a solid wall, I fell backwards. The world turned and I dragged this man along. I smacked the back of my head into a concrete floor as the lights shifted, turning from fluorescent to a distant moonlight. It's like I listened. I felt it. And the touch of that black wall was closer than ever. I heard a wheezing voice coming from beside me as I let go of the man with the shiv. He was muttering, "What the fuck," under his breath, over and over and over. I turned my head his way, relieved to feel the pressure in the back of my head release. Maybe I was just bleeding. The fire in my mind was cooling, coating my soul in a soothing balm. I sat up. We were in this long concrete corridor, like the prison wall had opened into a tunnel. It stretched on for as long as my eyes could see, and at the very end, I could see a black dot. Something I'd seen before, in the drawings. "There," I muttered, choking back, an acidic gulp escaping my stomach. "Gotta go there." I reached my hand out, I imagined running my hand across the surface of that black wall, and the more I thought about it, the closer I got. It wasn't moving me. We were collapsing our positions. It was closing the distance between us to mimic the space in my mind. I was trying to touch it, and it was letting me, from horizon to hand. Then, I was standing in front of it. I remember placing my hand on it. It was so cold that it burned me. But in another way, I didn't feel a thing. It didn't hurt. The man with the shiv put his hands to it as well. I could see his eyes go blank as he tried to figure out what was happening. "It's not a dream," he mumbled. "Not a nightmare. It's not a..." He stuttered, fumbling for the words. Looking down, I remembered the letter Haywood had given me. For a moment, I let go of the wall. In the blink of an eye, I could see so much more. I was standing knee-deep in a slow river, surrounded by a verdant forest. I could see the blue sunflowers from Haywood's drawing by the riverbank. The receipt fell out of the letter, tumbling into my hands. I almost dropped it. "You are Reggie," it read. "You were in jail for insurance fraud. You are delivering a letter." I read it aloud, then I read it again. It was telling the truth. The man with the shiv didn't have that kind of truth told. He knew nothing. It's like the wall had emptied his mind, making him roll the same words in his head over and over and over, repeating what was not happening, trying to find an answer to what had. He couldn't step away, but I did. He stood there, counting out loud all the things that wasn't. Not of this, not of that. His shiv got swept up in the river. I held the letter close and tore myself away. I wandered in a haze until I found a path, leading me to a road. A couple of drivers honked at me, probably because of the jumpsuit. I would stop at times, forgetting what the hell I was doing. Then I'd look down at the note and read it aloud. I was Reggie. I was in jail for insurance fraud. I was delivering a letter. After a while, cars stopped honking. It's like they didn't see me anymore. I would check the address on the letter and check the street signs. I tried asking a passerby for directions, but they just looked at me and kept walking. I think I found the place after a while. The house had been abandoned for decades, but I did as I'd been told and left the yellow letter on the doorstep. I didn't know what to do next. I was out of jail. I tried to remember what got me there, but it was all fading away. I got these little glimpses, like someone cutting me out of a deal and getting me put in jail. There were faces that I'd seen a million times, but I couldn't remember their names. Maybe one of them was a mom or a dad, but they might as well have been an uncle or an older sister. I didn't know. I was fading into the dark, along with that thing by the river. I tried to talk to a guy at the supermarket. I asked him where I was. He looked me in the eye, excused himself, and went back to whatever he was doing. It's like he saw right through me. I ended up grabbing a handful of Cheetos and walking out of there. I dropped one of the bags by the door. Turning around, I saw him pick it up and putting it back on the shelf, but he didn't even care to look my way. I had to look back at my notes over and over, reminding myself I was Reggie. I'd been in jail for insurance fraud. The note said I was delivering a letter, but I'd already done that. But I was forgetting that too. I had to do something. So I ripped the note in half. Maybe there was something else on it at some point. I don't know. Now I was Reggie. I was in jail for insurance fraud. That was it. The more I thought about it, the more it was true. I think I wandered for a while. I had a glass of wine at some point, then I felt this pressure building in my head again. and there was a corridor. And I remember this guy too. He was still standing there. His hand looked strange, but his words had turned into this slurred mess. The way you repeat something until it sounds more like a noise than a word. I held on to that note like it was the final breath of air before a deep plunge. I walked until I saw that dark thing by the river. But I read the note again and again, and I turned my back on it. I was Reggie. I was in jail for insurance fraud. And I walked. At some point, I passed a gate. Then I passed a security check. No one looked in my pockets. Hell, I was still holding my bag of Cheetos. My legs gave out. And when my eyes came to, I was having lunch. Right across from me was Haywood, looking me in the eye. It was different this time. I could see he wasn't just tired. He was empty. He looked at the bald spot on the side of my head. I didn't reach for it. I haven't since. I kind of miss it. I'm Haywood, and I'm in jail for murder, he said. I'm Reggie. I'm in jail for insurance fraud, I answered. It wasn't an introduction. We were reassuring one another, reminding ourselves we had been out there by that thing, and it had burned away something we'd taken for granted. If we'd known each other from before, maybe we could have kept something more, but no. I got a name and charge and place. It's simple, but it's all I got. He's the same. I walk these halls doing whatever the hell I want. Maybe I can say I'm someone or something else, but I can't risk it. I can't lose myself like that, smiling man. I don't want to get stuck like that. I think I knew his name at some point. Maybe he lost it. I've tried not to remind myself, but I can feel something slipping away when I stop reminding myself. There are so many things I've let go of, and I can't even remember why I mourn them. But it gets easier when things are simple and clear. I'm Reggie. That's simple. I'm in jail. That's clear. People forget Haywood and I are here. We talk to people sometimes, but they forget all about it shortly after. Sometimes writing it down holds their attention a little longer, but it always fades. I once straight up slapped Potbelly across the face. It earned me a whack and a shove, but then he just walked away like nothing happened. He had a bruise all week. Haywood and I play some games, talk about whatever details we remember. I've made a note of things I'm certain of, or that he's told me. That's why I've used to write this all down. I'm sure I got some details wrong though. I try not to think about this. When I do, I can feel my mind getting dragged away. It's not a matter of space. It's a matter of being aware. The more you think about it, the more you see it. And if you look close enough, I think you can still see a man standing there, counting the many things he isn't. Or maybe he's gone by now. I don't want to look. I don't know if all I've told you is the truth. My stomach turns when I think about how much might be wrong or misremembered. I don't want to think about it. I just read my note, and I let that be me, even if it isn't. I have to keep it simple. I have to keep it clear. I am Reggie. I am in jail for insurance fraud.